Iniciando mais uma aula de telegrafia. Hoje o nosso texto na mesma cadência, ok? 125 caracteres em 5 minutos. Então, uma média de 25 por minuto. Nosso texto da legislação do radioamadorismo. E a gente começa o ditado em 3, 2, 1. corrigindo, ficou o seguinte, hoje foi maior, né? Foi bem longo, mas é treino, ok? Importante cadência, importante pausas. O texto um pouquinho maior não quer dizer nada, ok? Então, lendo, ficou o seguinte, quem pode utilizar este serviço? Pessoas físicas e jurídicas. No caso de pessoas jurídicas, somente associações de radioamadores, universidades e escolas, entidades de defesa civil e associações do movimento escoteiro e bandeirante. Ponto. Lembrando, papatango ou também essa outra forma. Ponto, traço, ok? Que é isso aqui, ó. Até eu tenho aceito a abreviação papatango, ok? Ponto. Bom, lendo mais uma vez o texto, ficou o seguinte. Quem pode utilizar esse serviço? Pessoas jurídicas, aliás, pessoas físicas e jurídicas. No caso de pessoas jurídicas, somente associações de radioamadores, universidades e escolas, entidades de defesa civil e associações do movimento escoteiro e bandeirante. Ponto. Tranquilo? O texto foi um pouquinho maior, porém, por uma boa causa aí, que é o treino do amigo, ok?
Agora são 17 horas, 11 minutos, e hoje tivemos a aula número 48. Quem perdeu, pega na playlist, CW aula 48, é o mesmíssimo conteúdo, ok? Inclusive quem faz o curso aí somente via playlist, a gente segue rigorosamente essa mesma sequência, tá bom? Então fica tranquilo aí quem faz com a gente pela internet, que é exatamente igual aí a sequência de aulas e conteúdo de cada aula, ok? E vamos em frente. Oportunidade aos amigos com boa tarde.
That's right here. That is the power supply for the clock. And then right at the bottom, there's another 2 wires down here that are on the inside that connect to a circuit board, a red and a blue wire that you'll just need to pull off their own clips. And then this rear panel just comes off like so. Now, before you want to really do any kind of repairs on this radio, I've noticed throughout time that these foam blocks look like they're moldy. And I'm not sure what that is in that foam block, but it really looks like mold. So I don't take any chances. What I do is I take this into a well-ventilated area and I remove these blocks. So really, it's like a piece of foam stuck to a piece of tape, which is then adhered to the circuit board. So if you get the foam off, you'll notice that there will be a tape residue left. You'll have to remove that residue. There also is another foam block down here, but this one looks like it's been removed already by somebody else. And of course, the 3 screws on the bottom panel, or the on the back side, the bottom panel is a part of the back here. They were also missing. So somebody's been in here, it looks like, and they've tried to do some servicing already at some point in time. So once you get the foam removed and everything, you're pretty much ready to do your servicing at that point. Just before I go about removing this foam, this is kind of interesting. I poke my probe leads in here. All right, so I'll move this up here. Now watch what happens when I poke this lead into the foam. 36 megs. Remove the probe lead. Poke it in up here. 34 megs. So I'll poke it really close to this other probe, 20 megs. So the foam is actually becoming conductive as it's decaying. So where the little legs of the components are poking through the backside of the circuit board here and they've soldered them, if those little legs are poking into any of this foam, it could be making continuity between some traces. Of course, the resistance will be quite high, but still, that can affect some circuitry. So these foam blocks are definitely a very big issue. So they definitely have to be removed. All right, I've got rid of all the mold now, and that was in that foam in the back. Now, I've noticed that in these receivers, it just seems to be that block of foam, that one and the other one. I noticed that there's foam in this lip here still. I haven't got all the foam because I have to remove the bottom of the radio to get the foam in this lip. And the foam that's on here didn't seem to have any mold in it. It's just those blocks. So I don't know why it always seems to get trapped in those blocks. Definitely is mold. And in one spot, it was even black. So when I removed all that, of course, I did that with a proper mask on. And then when I was done with the mask still on, I went outside and I blew the chassis out with compressed air to make sure that it's all gone. So now we're at the point where we need to start troubleshooting this thing. If you recall earlier, it seems like the shortwave is pretty quiet and the frequency counter kind of stops counting midway. So we'll turn it on here again. And you can see there's just decimal places there. I don't know if you can see that very well with the light. Let's move the light a little bit. So there's just decimal places here. And then when I move this, you can see that there's pretty much no action on the VFO or in the VFO at all until I pretty much come right to the end. Then it starts at 0. And technically the 0 should be at this end. So this is kind of pointing towards this area here at first. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the block diagram and the schematic and figure out where we need to start looking first to start troubleshooting this issue. Now that we've run some preliminary tests, we can use this block diagram to get an idea of where we need to start looking for some issues. So we know that the medium wave and the long wave works just fine, and we can see the antenna path goes all the way through here into this medium wave, long wave RF amplifier and out to this point right here. Yet we know that the shortwave doesn't work at all and the display is acting funny. So this is the shortwave antenna path. It runs in through here, through the shortwave RF amp, through a bandpass filter, through a balanced mixer, and then through our shortwave IF amplifier right here. So since the receiver is working on the medium wave and long wave, we can pretty much say that everything past this point is working. So it's something back here in the short wave. And it also extends down here into the synthesizer and all the way over into the frequency counter. So we actually have quite a large area to look. Now, you'll notice that when we turned the VFO dial, we only had a little bit of action right at one end. Now, it says right here that the VFO goes from 2.455 megahertz to 3.455 megahertz. I'll just zoom in on this a little bit here. So you can see here, this is the VFO right here, and the VFO really just goes through a buffer amp and then directly right into the frequency counter. So this should be relatively easy to check. We can check the VFO just by undoing a connector that runs into the frequency counter and then taking a look at it on an oscilloscope. And that will really be the first thing that we're going to check, because this is suspect. It goes, pretty much all the way to one end, and then all of a sudden we get just a little bit of a reading. So we don't really know if this frequency is falling within the 2.455 megahertz to the 3.455 megahertz range. So this is the first thing that we're going to check. Okay, so here we are on the backside of the radio. And this is the VFO, and we have a cable coming out on the top here, and we also have a power lead right here and a cable coming out on the bottom. This one here runs out to the synthesizer, which is this big box on the bottom here. All right, so since we have this cable running out on the top here, we can see if we follow it, it goes right up into the counter. So there's a small plug there that runs up on the counter. So that's the plug that's right at the front. I'll see if I can get a little bit better. There we go. A little bit better shot of it there. So you can see this one here, this one right here is the VFO in. This one here runs out to the synthesizer. So this is the one that we are going to focus on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this plug here, and we're going to take a look at the VFO output and see what kind of signal we have on this connector right here. I now have my oscilloscope tied to the VFO output here, and I'm using a 22 meg resistors leads just to tie into the socket here so I can make connection. And this works quite well for this particular application and other applications where you have these little connectors here. Now, if you ever do this yourself, you want to make sure that the leads aren't too big. If you ever find that you're forcing the resistor into these sockets, you'll stretch the connections in here. And then when you go to remake the connection to wherever this was plugged in this case, this is going up to the frequency counter, you might have a loose connection. So they should just fit nice and snug, and you shouldn't actually have to force the resistor in. So we're ready to take some measurements here. I'll take a look at the scope. And I'll just turn this on right now. And that's the signal coming out of the VFO. So you can see that we're down at the low end, 2.42 megs. I'll just turn the VFO dial here, right to the opposite end. And we can see that it is oscillating, and it is within the correct range. So this is the top end, 3.47 is pretty much where it's stopping. So it is traveling through the area it's supposed to travel. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the stability of the actual signal coming out of this VFO. I'll actually hook this to a counter, and we'll take a look at the counter and see if we have any digit movement or if it's unstable or anything like that. It looks pretty stable on the scope here. I have the frequency counter hooked to the same 22 meg resistor that the oscilloscope is hooked to. And as you can see, the amplitude of the waveform has dropped just a little bit. It was at about 500 millivolts peak to peak before. Now it's at about 330 millivolts or something like that, peak to peak. And that's just because the frequency counter is loading the circuit just a little bit. So I'm not really too concerned about that. What I am concerned about is frequency stability. So let's take a look at the counter and check out the actual stability of the frequency coming out of this VFO. So pay no attention to the movement in this digit. We're not really worried about that. To give you an idea of how sensitive it is at this point, I could dangle a piece of Kleenex on the VFO shaft and it would cause massive movement in this digit. So we're not concerned about that. That is extremely stable. So right now we're at 3,391,977 cycles per second, or in today's speak, 3.391 megahertz. So very, very stable VFO. It's just a free running oscillator. It's doing very, very well. So now what we want to find out is if the amplitude coming out of that VFO is enough to actually drive the counter. That's going to tell us quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook a function generator up to the input of the frequency counter, and I'm going to mimic these frequencies, and we'll see if the counter does the exact same thing it does with the VFO. And then what I'll do is I'll up the signal level running into the frequency counter, and if it still does the same thing, we can be pretty positive the problem is somewhere else in this receiver.
Então vamos lá, ato 1106/2018. Legislação, então você pode pegar no Google, ok? Coloca Anatel na frente, Anatel, faz a pesquisa no Google, tranquilo, bem fácil. Bom, então vamos lá. O ato 9106/2018. Estamos em emissões, terceira parte, ok? Eu já entrar na tabela A17. Tá? Modo de emissão facsímile. Então, o modo facsímile, ou transmissão em facsímile, é modulação de amplitude em faixa lateral única, portadora suprimida, cujos tipos de emissão são os seguintes, olha lá. Temos 3 referências aí, quando a gente fala de facsímile em banda lateral. Então, identificação R3C, J2C e J3C, ok? R3C. faixa lateral única com portadora reduzida ou nível variado. J2C, faixa lateral única, portadora suprimida. E J3C, faixa lateral única, portadora suprimida, ok? Não vou entrar em detalhes, né, somente significado dos tipos de emissões, né, a forma correta, né, que o pessoal identifica, e o que a gente conhece como AM, FM, banda lateral, né, tudo isso tem as siglas que identificam, ok? Bom, na tabela A18, a gente fala de SSTV em SSB, ok? Lembrando, SSTV é TV de varredura lenta, ok? Slow Scan TV, tá bom? Slow Scan TV ou TV de varredura lenta. Então, isso em banda lateral. Tranquilo? Então, ó, transmissão de televisão de varredura lenta em modulação de amplitude com faixa lateral única. Então, nós temos dois tipos, olha lá. Então, você tem SSTV em banda lateral, que é R3F. Tá? R3F é faixa lateral única com portadora reduzida ou nível variável. E J3F, faixa lateral única com portadora suprimida, ok? Tabela A19. É o FSTV. É o contrário, né? É a transmissão de TV com varredura rápida, ok? Então, FES.
Bom, a gente vai dar intervalo e já retornando, ok? Lembrando que dia 8, segunda-feira, janeiro, teremos ponto de encontro dos radioamadores Hermelino Matarazzo. Esse ano já encerrou, ok? Já tivemos aí o último ponto de encontro dos radioamadores Hermelino Matarazzo, agora próximo só o ano que vem. Quem não conhece o endereço, anota aí que a gente passa para os amigos, tá bom? Então, vamos lá. Parque Municipal Hermelino Matarazzo, Rua Abel Tavares, 1542. Rua Abel Tavares, 1542, ok? Então, o próximo evento agora, dia 8, domingo, janeiro, tá bom? Inaugurando aí o ano de 2023, um ponto de encontro dos radioamadores bem recente aí que ele começou, né? Tem talvez uns 2, 3 meses, acho que nem isso. Mais ou menos isso, mais ou menos uns 3 meses, tá bom? E 2023, mais um ano aí, iniciando com esse grande evento. E vamos em frente. Oportunidade com boa tarde.
So this is the synthesizer right here, and in order to get in here, you have to remove a few screws as well on the cover. So this is the cover for the synthesizer. So in order to get this cover off, you have to unplug this connector right here. So you unplug that connector, and then undo the screws on the top cover here, so the screws all the way around. And once that's removed, you'll come to an RF gasket. And this is the RF gasket that sits underneath. So what you do is you desolder. There's two capacitors soldered to this little tab on the RF gasket. Just desolder that, and this will just come right off, and you're into the synthesizer unit just that easy. Now that I've got the bottom portion of this receiver swung forward on its hinge here, you'll notice in the receiver there's this long shaft with a foot on the bottom of it. This shaft is connected to the power switch on the front of the receiver, so when you turn that power switch, this shaft moves up and down. So this foot presses on this switch right here, and that turns on the power supply. So in order for me to troubleshoot this synthesizer, I need power applied to it. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of tape and put it over that, and just to hold that switch on so that I get voltage to the synthesizer area. Now, it's not good enough just to have this piece of tape here. You also need the switch in the on position. There's another switch on this shaft at the opposite end that needs to be in the on position for everything to work properly. So if you're going to be defeating any power switches or working on any receivers with any power applied to them, you're doing so at your own risk. So just take care. So there still is no power applied to this receiver. This is all hooked to a master switch that I have on the wall. So I have to turn on that master switch to supply power to this entire receiver. So right now everything is still off. Now this is the synthesizer area right here. And I'm going to focus in on a small area here. And you'll see, if I can get my light on that, you'll see 5 kilohertz out right here, and that's on this pin right here. So we should have a 5 kilohertz signal on that pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my oscilloscope probe lead, attach it to here. It's fine to attach your probe lead to the chassis here. This is the common lead. And I've got the probe hooked up to that now. So let's take a look at the oscilloscope. Just move this out of the way. And I'll turn the power supply on. And it says we've got 980 hertz, and that's not the signal that we are looking for at all. So I'll just shut this off here. I'll remove this probe lead from here. So if we look back at the synthesizer here, you can see there's an IC that says UPC 1008C there. So if we look at the actual sheet that comes in the service manual here, you'll notice that we have 1, 2, 3 ICs right here. So this is the service sheet. So in order to look at this, we'll turn it sideways, and that mimics these ICs right here. But you'll notice on the sheet that we have an MC4044P, whereas this one is a UPC 1008C. So obviously somewhere down the road they've subbed that IC for this one, or vice versa, maybe for an important performance improvement or less noise or something like that. I really don't know. But pin 1 is the output on that IC, and pin 1 is the output on this IC right here, and they show it going through a resistor and a capacitor right into the frequency counter. So we're using an oscilloscope to look at this, so it should be absolutely fine. We really won't need to do this. I have a 10-to-1 probe on my scope. So what I'm going to do is focus back on the oscilloscope here again. I'll grab my probe lead. All right, now what I'll do is I'll turn the receiver back on, and I'll touch this to pin number 1, and we should have a 500 kilohertz signal here. And that's on pin number 1. And there's absolutely nothing there. I'll see if I can move the camera slowly and show you. All right, I'm touching pin number 1 right now. And absolutely nothing there. So we can definitely see that we have problems within this synthesizer unit. So the next thing to do would be to look for supply voltages in this unit itself to see if there's actually any voltages present in here, because it seems like there's quite a wide area with nothing happening. We know that 2 signals that we've looked for on this synthesizer board are not here. So what we want to do is we want to check the supply voltages coming to this board and make sure they are. Now, the supply voltages come into this area here through these terminals right here, and Sony was nice enough to mark on the circuit board 5 volts, 6.3, and this runs off to an area that says 12 volts. So what we're going to do is we're going to check to make sure that those voltages are present. All right, so here we have, there's 11.6 volts here. We have 4.8 volts here. And we have 6.3 volts here. So everything is there that should be there. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that those voltages are present on these ICs right here. And 74 series logic ICs have a pretty standardized system for their positive and negative supply pins. So this is a 16-pin IC. So that means that pin 8 is negative and pin 16 is positive. Now this is a 14-pin IC right here, and the positive and negative pins on this IC are the same as a 74 series logic IC. So since this is 14 pins, pin 7 is negative and pin 14 is positive. So one really easy way to remember this for these ICs is the pin directly across the IC from pin 1 is the positive supply. And then if you follow on the same side from pin 1 right down to the opposite end here, which is pin 8 is negative. So it kind of goes on a diagonal. And this is a pretty standardized system for 74 series logic ICs. Now, these early 74 series logic ICs run on 5 volts.
Fast Scan TV, tá bom? O Fast Scan TV é a TV de varredura rápida em modulação de amplitude. Tá? A sigla identificadora A3F. Você não precisa decorar, nem se preocupa, tá bom? Só conhecendo, né, um pouquinho da tabela, né, e sabendo, né, que o FSTV, nessa modalidade de AM, é identificada como A, tá bom? Emissão A3F, tá bom? A3F é FSTV em amplitude modulada, tranquilo? Ou em amplitude, né? Depois nós temos, ó, o item 20, FSTV, FM, tá? Então, TV de varredura rápida em frequência modulada, ok? Tem várias opções de SSTV, FSTV, AM, FM, enfim. Agora nós vamos para frequência modulada. Então, TV de varredura lenta, TV de varredura rápida em frequência. Tá? FSTV, FM. Identificação F3F, ok? F3F é a mesma coisa que FSTV em frequência modulada. Tranquilo? Item 21. É o FSTV SSB, ou seja, na TV de varredura rápida em banda lateral, ok? Transmissão de televisão de varredura rápida em modulação de amplitude, banda lateral única. Tá? Identificação C3F. Então, toda vez que você ouvir a sigla C3F, então, C3F é a mesma coisa que TV de varredura rápida em banda lateral, ok? Tem essa forma aqui de identificação mais, vamos chamar, correta, né? São siglas, né, mais de uso profissional para quem trabalha na área de telecomunicações ou de manutenção, né, de equipamentos de telecomunicações.
Bom, a gente vai dar mais uma pausa e já retornando. A gente lembra os amigos, estamos aí com a campanha de doação de sangue, ok? Quem ainda não colaborou, dá uma força, colabore. Temos aí os hemocentros, hospitais também que fazem coleta de sangue. E o amigo aí que puder colaborar, dá uma forcinha, ok? São vários aí, alguns pertinho do seu batente, bem perto aí da sua casa, ok? Então dá uma forcinha, colabore, é um pouquinho só que você doa, né, uma quantidade bem pequena de sangue, porém, essa quantidade salva uma vida. Então, vamos colaborar e vamos participar aí da campanha de doação de sangue nos hemocentros, hospitais e locais aí que você puder comparecer e colaborar, ok? São 17h36. Oportunidade com boa tarde.
So when you go to desolder this, some of your solder is bound to touch this aluminum here, and it's going to sink the heat off your iron. So you're going to need to have a really hot soldering iron. And what you want to do is have a jeweler's screwdriver. And once you heat this up, slowly feed a jeweler's screwdriver under there and then pull this away from this board here. This board will not come out if this is soldered to it. So now what they've done is they have a bunch of little tabs in here that tension this into this machine slot here. So in order to get this board out, of course, you're going to have to remove the screws first, and you need to take these 3 wires off. So now you want to mark these. If you haven't marked them, this one goes to a terminal called N. This goes to 5 volts. The red one goes to 5 volts, and the black one goes to E, or earth. So once all the screws are removed, what you want to do is you're going to have to pull on this tab gently. You don't want to bend the circuit board because the circuit board ties to these, and a lot of the times these things are ceramic, and if you bend them, you're going to crack these feed-throughs. So you have to kind of work at the terminal tie board and kind of work it out in an orderly fashion, and it should come right out. They've put a capacitor with some glue right over the top of this screw, so you're going to have to pull that capacitor forward to get to this one screw here on the inside of the box here, right at the top. So once all that's done, you have this board out and ready to be serviced. Before I start working on this synthesizer board or troubleshooting it, I want to make a few observations. And these observations are very crucial whenever you're doing troubleshooting, especially in something like this. So basically what I'm looking for is I'm looking for tampering to see if any other tech has been in here before me. Has that tech done anything stupid? Have they screwed up on the assembly line? I want to put this big picture together before I start working on this circuit board here and then start adding my fresh solder. Once you start adding your fresh solder, it becomes very difficult to trace backwards because now, of course, I've tampered with it at this point.
Boa tarde aqui para o Alexandre. Tudo em paz, tranquilo, Alexandre? Obrigado aí pelos votos, ok? Tudo de bom. E aqui tudo tranquilo, sem novidade no front. Positivo. Positivo. Ok. Sempre que tem alguma atividade em algum grupo de escoteiros, eles participam da rodada, ok? A gente fala aí com jovens, lobinhos, escoteiros, e dá uma incentivada e troca uma ideia bem interessante. Tudo isso a gente faz com qualquer grupo de escoteiros, ok? Qualquer amigo aí tendo atividade, é só passar na rodada aqui, a gente dá um incentivo. E a criançada adora, né? Eles são curiosos, né? Gosta de novidades, então perguntam mesmo, né? E a gente vai incentivando eles para também serem radioamadores. Que hoje o escotismo e o radioamadorismo andam juntos, né? Não tem como termos aí a separação de ambos. Isso é no mundo inteiro, né? No mundo inteiro, escotismo e radioamadorismo estão juntos há muitos e muitos anos. Eu diria até muitas e muitas décadas, é ou não é? Um ajuda o outro, né? O radioamadorismo foi uma grande conquista para o escotismo, e o escotismo, vindo para o radioamadorismo, também uma grande conquista. Acho que os dois saíram ganhando, né? Bom para um, bom para outro, e bom para os dois. Então, tá aí. Legal, Alexandre. Ainda bem que você descobriu a tempo aí o hobby, né? Bem bacana. E tem tudo a ver, né? Tem alguns eventos aí que você está num lugar que telefone celular não pega, né? Se não tiver um rádio amador, o pessoal está sem comunicação, né? É bem-vindo, né? Bem-vindo. Mas legal. Bom, vou abrir espaço para os amigos. Oportunidade na frequência com boa tarde.
I don't know if that would be from the actual factory or not. Maybe somebody just overlooked something and, that just got tacked on there very fast. Now, this is on the 5-volt supply, but this wasn't causing the 5-volt supply to go away. As you saw, we did have the 4.8 volts at this terminal here, so there were no shorts, and the problem would be within this board somewhere. So just a couple of observations before I actually start working on this. And this thing is also littered with this glue, as you've probably seen before. They've got this glue on it, but it is not conductive. There's some of the glue down here they've used. You can see that glue right there. It is non-conductive. So I always test this stuff. When it gets to this color, if it's that glue that goes conductive, it would definitely be conductive by now. Now, I've gone through the entire radio, and this whole radio is just littered with this glue. Like, this glue is everywhere in here. And thankfully, that glue is non-conductive. Now, those foam pads, yes, they were very conductive. But thankfully, again, that the glue is not. So now we're going to get on to the troubleshooting of this board, and we're going to find out why and where that 5-volt supply is going missing. Now that the synthesizer circuit board is removed from this housing here, the 5 volts is making connection to the board again, so that's telling me that there is an intermittent connection somewhere here on the circuit board. In an attempt to find that 5 volt intermittent connection, I've soldered a wire here to a non-intrusive portion of the 5 volt supply, so really that would be far away from the problem. And I've also soldered another wire here to the input of the 5 volts.
Está mais uma dica para o Alexandre, tá bom, Alexandre? Agora em janeiro, dia 2, segunda-feira, a gente começa 3 cursos aqui na rodada Alto-falante, ok? Curso de CW, que é o carro-chefe, né? Normalmente o pessoal procura muito para promoção classe B, ok? A gente vai dar o curso aí em 3 possibilidades. Tá? A primeira possibilidade via radiofrequência, porém a gente sabe, né, que nem todos chegam para mim ou vice-versa, né? E a gente tem também a opção da internet. Então, a segunda opção via live, né? Como agora, né? Aí, qualquer lugar do planeta você faz o curso com a gente, ok? Via internet, via live e em 2 edições. A gente vai ter o curso às 5 horas, primeira edição, e 17 horas, segunda edição, ok? Agora, quem não puder fazer nesses 2 horários, vai ter também via playlist. Tá? Via playlist, você entra lá no nosso canal, né? Tem os cursos, ok? Você escolhe o curso e faz aí no seu horário, tá bom? Sendo da primeira forma, via radiofrequência, da segunda forma, via internet, via live, ou, na terceira opção, via playlist, tá? Qualquer uma das 3, a qualquer momento na rodada, você tira dúvidas com a gente. Tá? Sábados, domingos, feriados, na primeira edição, na segunda edição, tranquilo? Então, fica a dica aí para os amigos. Quem quiser, né, pode também fazer direto classe B. Tá bom? Vai ter que estudar um pouco mais, né? São 4 matérias, ok? Legislação, técnica e ética operacional, CW, transmissão e recepção e radioeletricidade, ok? Agora, quem já é classe C, né, mais tranquilo. Somente 2 matérias. Então, fica a dica para os amigos e para o Alexandre, tá bom, Alexandre? Positivo. TM731, já tive esse rádio, hein? Um rádio da Kenwood, né? Muito, muito bom. Se eu não me engano, 50 watts, isso aí. Positivo. Agora, para subir no telhado é melhor o tempo seco. Não é bom nem tentar aí com tempo úmido, chovendo, é perigoso. Né? Deixa eu dar uns 2 dias aí de tempo bem seco, né? O telhado bem seco para não ter problema de escorregar, né? É bom, mais seguro. Tá bom, Alexandre? E boa sorte. Precisando, conta aí com a gente, ok? São 17 horas e 46 minutos. Oportunidade com boa tarde.
Have a taper and they come down right to here. Well, if this was, maybe pressed right onto that trace really hard, it may make a temporary connection, but any kind of oxidization is going to cause a really big issue, especially if this isn't sitting flush. So if this was sitting, right down to the board like that, but if it's sitting up just a little bit, there's going to be absolutely no connection. And that IC is actually sitting up just a little bit on that board. So that's one really big issue that needs to be addressed. And then, of course, I'm going to need to get under this can here to replace the electrolytics. And in order to do that, I need to desolder all this here. And I need to desolder these blobs here, this blob here. And I think there's one also hiding under this braid here. And then I'll be able to remove this can and get at the electrolytic capacitors under there. So there's quite a bit of work to be done on the circuit board to make it acceptable. While I'm here, I'll,
just be prepared and turn it on for the first time, that 2-second delay.
Radio 161, great to make the hook up there, Matt. Yeah, Matt, J. Juliet Alpha Yankee was my name for your further information.
Hi, this is CBRadioMagazine.com, and today in front of us we've got the Stryker SR 955 HP. This is new high-powered single sideband radio from Stryker. Stryker radios previously had produced AM/FM type export radios that were well known for having good, strong, loud AM modulation, audio on the air. People really liked those, and so they had asked Stryker at some point to develop a single sideband radio. Stryker spent a number of years in development, and this is the radio that they came out with. I think their goals for this radio were to produce a radio that would have that same loud, punchy audio on both AM and single sideband, with good modulation and a lot of swing on AM. One of the big things was to get a radio that would have high frequency stability compared to a lot of the other export radios that had drift issues. So this is the new model that they came out with, the SR955HP. And in our full written review that we should have up on the website shortly, we'll go through and give our review of the radio and what we think about it and how well it met some of those objectives. And for today, though, we're going to give you a full overview of the radio and show you all the features and functions. All right, out of the box, we've unpacked the radio. You can see inside the box, you get the radio, microphone, mounting bracket, power cord, mounting hardware for your thumb screws and for the mounting bracket, and your manual. This radio is software programmable, so you can do some modifications to it using some software in your computer. But my particular radio did not come with the software cable or the software. So I thought maybe it was something that you'd have to buy separately. I did email Stryker, and they said, no, it was just a mistake with the first batch of radios. They sent me off a cable and the software information and got everything within a couple of days. So good customer service on that. And yes, the cable should be coming with the radios, so you can do the software programming option with them. So this is the inside of the 955 HP. There's another video online by another gentleman who's done a very good job showing off all the shielding and sections and everything, so we won't take a huge amount of time. Surface mount technology inside SMT. You'll see the shielding on important areas in the radio, shielding on the transistor section back here. Got some nice heavy-duty coil section back here. The adjustment points are labeled, and they're not super tiny like you see on a lot of radios that are using the SMT stuff. So nice to see larger pots, makes it a little bit easier. They are all labeled. So you got your high power adjustment, single sideband, FM, AM modulation, meter adjustments, things like that. So everything's easily labeled and adjustable, easy to see. And as we showed before, for conversion, you do have to remove a small resistor off of the board, which is very tiny, so a little difficult to do on that one. But yeah, very clean layout with the surface mount technology these days. You get your wire bundle coming off from the face, going to the board, and one or two other wires, and that's it. So it's, you know, so much cleaner than a lot of the older radios. Parts are smaller, less likely to get bumped around or broken, so the radios should be more durable, should last longer with less problems. Just a little bit hard to work on if you have smaller components that need to be replaced. You have to have a very fine tip soldering iron. And on this radio, they did do the larger pots, which is nice to see. So it's a little bit easier for tuning. You don't have those tiny little pots. So that's the inside of the 955 HP. Okay, one of the first things I'll show you about this radio, we'll talk about the backlighting, the display, and the coloring. The radio does have lighting that shows through the face, around the bezel. All of the typeface is lit up. You have LCD screens here and over here that light up. The lighting is adjustable for a color. So there's a color button over here on the side. You can scroll through different colors. And there is even a loop option. The loop option will actually scroll through the colors on its own. You can set the delay, like every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds, it'll change colors and do it automatically, kind of a Christmas tree effect, if that's your thing. Not necessarily mine, but definitely lots of options for coloring on the face. Nice thing about that is you can match it up to whatever the vehicle interior lighting is on your dash. So if you have blue lights in your vehicle, then you could set this to blue or green or whatever. So nice that you can kind of coordinate it that way. You can pick whatever color you think is going to work best for you. The lighting, some of the initial people have seen the lighting on this thing and said, well, it's too bright. It, you know, super luminescent. Well, there's a dimming option on this, and you can actually dim it all the way off if you want. You can have it on a scale of 1 all the way up to a scale of 31. So you can see at 31 the radio is quite bright. I'll actually turn off the lights to show you the effect here. And some people have said this is a little bit too much bling bling for them in their vehicle to have it this bright. And once again, you know, you can adjust the dimming level and set it at something suitable for whatever you're doing. So if you wanted it at level 1, you could set it there. Or if you want to crank it up, you can go bright. So that's the dimming option and the coloring. And as you can see, it's nice all the stuff lights up here on the display. You can see all the type real easily. Nice thing about this radio and the lighting, it's consistent. The color is the same all the way across the face of the radio. Some radios we've seen, you know, the actual channel display was a different color than the backlighting, or the frequency display was a different color than the backlighting, or the meter, or whatever. So it's nice to see a radio that has the consistent lighting all the way through it. It's very bright, so during the day it'll light up enough, and at night when you're driving you can dim it if you want, so it's not too obnoxious. Starting on the left side of the radio, I'm going through the features here. You see there's a function button that will take you into your function menu, and we will go through that in detail, showing the different features. There's a scan button. Pressing this will scan through the band that you're in, so it'll scan through all the different channels, and you have your squelch turned up, and if a signal breaks the squelch, it will stop on that frequency. There's your color changing button, of course, the one that we use to go through and cycle through all the colors. Now, the meter is something new looking. It's a digital type meter. It has your signal strength coming in here, shows your power output level here, 10 watts, 20 watts, 40 watts, 60, 80, 100. And it shows your SWR here. So you don't have to calibrate for SWR. It has an auto calibrating feature, and it will show your SWR as you have your power output. So that's a nice feature. You can actually see what your power is and what your SWR is simultaneously. Down here, there's an option. You can show the name of the radio. You can show the voltage that the radio is at, or you can have it rotate back and forth between the voltage and the radio name. So it's nice that this radio will show you what your voltage is to make sure that your radio is getting enough voltage and it's in the normal range. It'll show you your SWR, your power output, and your signal strength, and it's all visible on one meter. Okay, moving over just a little bit. Up here, we've got your variable power and your talkback. The MON stands for monitor. That's on the inside. You can turn your talkback off completely, or if you want talkback, you can turn it on.
Então, o engenheiro dessa área, ele identifica por essas siglas, ok? C3F, W7D, C3W, tá bom? Tudo isso são características desses modos de transmissão, ok? Bom, indo para modos experimentais. Os modos experimentais são nas tabelas de cada banda que a gente já leu para os amigos, tá bom? Cada banda, né, tem um comprimento de onda, né, tem um range, né, respectivo, onde começa, onde termina a frequência. E uma das colunas de possibilidades de transmissão, né, tem banda lateral, tem telegrafia, tem AM, FM, modos digitais, DV, né, digital voice, enfim. Né, além de todos esses modos, né, você tem modos experimentais, ok? Então, dentre os modos experimentais estão aqui, ó, W7D, Whisky 7º Delta, ok? Whisky 7º Delta, ou W7D, é combinação de modos, amplitude, ângulo ou pulso, ok? Amplitude, ângulo ou pulso. Temos também o modos experimentais C3W, que é faixa lateral vestigial. Temos o X9D, são casos não previstos nas denominações anteriores. Tá? Então, modos experimentais aí, né, em algo aí diferenciado, uma combinação de amplitude com pulso, com ângulo, né, diferenciado, enfim. Tá bom? Tem todos os modos que eu estava lendo aqui, né, os modos experimentais, né, permitem, né, essas que eu já passei, W7 Delta, C3W e o X9D. Então, essa designação X9D, né, o técnico, engenheiro de telecomunicações, quem trabalha num laboratório, manutenção de equipamentos, né, vai ter alguns equipamentos que vão ter essa designação, ok? Eles vão estar preparados para esses tipos de emissões, tá bom? Como nós, radioamadores, né? Eu falei agora, por exemplo, vamos pegar uma referência aqui, ó. Facsímile em FM. Você pega dados em banda lateral. Tem, né? Tudo isso tem designação e nós podemos usar, ok? Você pega aqui dados AM, dados em FM. Você pega fonia digital, tá aqui, ó. A fonia digital, já falei, né? Foi numa outra aula, tá bom? Fonia digital, né? Com a identificação, tá aqui, ó. G7E, que é tipo de modulação em fase, F7E, que é modulação em frequência, tá? J2E, que é faixa lateral única, portadora suprimida, tá bom? Então, até no modo digital, né, que é a fonia, né, a gente conhece na tabela como DV, Digital Voice, tá aqui, ó. Modo G7E, fase, F7E, frequência, e J2E, faixa lateral única com portadora suprimida, ok?
Bom, a gente vai dar mais um intervalo, já retornando em emissões. Tá? As emissões nós dividimos em 3 partes. É o ato 9106/2018. Quem quiser dar uma olhada, entra no Google, coloca essa legislação, ok? E coloca a Anatel na frente. A busca é rápida e certeira. Se você não coloca a Anatel, né, vão ser pesquisados no Google, né, centenas de normas com esse número, ok? Vão aparecer 50, 70, 100 referências. Então, pondo a Anatel, a busca já vai direto em telecomunicações, ok? Ou no próprio site da Anatel. Tranquilo? Então, todas essas buscas pelas legislações do radioamadorismo, quando for no Google, coloca a Anatel na frente, que ela é mais rápida e direto, tá bom? Vai aparecer somente essa norma para a gente. Tranquilo? Bom, deixa eu falar do ponto de encontro, que acontece toda segunda-feira à noite no Pacaembu. Para quem não conhece, meio estranho, né? Porque normalmente encontro de radioamadores aos domingos. Só que esse já é bem tradicional, ok? Começaram lá com 2, 3, 5 amigos e hoje tem uma quantidade bem grande de amigos que vão por lá, ok? Então, toda segunda-feira à noite, 19h30 em diante, Pacaembu. Pacaembu todo mundo conhece, o estádio do Pacaembu, é bem na frente, no estacionamento, ok? Corujas, PX, simpatizantes aí do hobby, todo mundo convidado. Tranquilo? Então, compareça e boa sorte. E vamos lá. Oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
Here, so this one, it's in the middle position. It's not doing anything. If you move it to the right, it's the echo position. The TSQ position isn't actually used for the radio normally. It's a switch to activate an optional CTCSS module, which is not in the radio. That's something optional. It's not included with this, so it's probably something most of you will not be using, but that's what that TSQ would do. Just below here, we've got our fine and coarse clarifiers. These are going to work a little bit different than you're used to on a lot of exports. The fine clarifier is on the inside, coarse clarifiers on the outside. The fine clarifier can be set up to only adjust receive, transmit, or receive and transmit. So you can set it up, that option, to do it in those different types of modes. The coarse clarifier is on the outside, and it is going to adjust your frequency, your receive and transmit frequency. The interesting thing about this radio is in the menu, you can adjust how the tuning stages of the fine clarifier work, and you can adjust the tuning stages of the coarse clarifier. We'll show you all of that when we get into the menu functions, but it's neat to be able to adjust how these work and what the increments of tuning that they're going to be adjusting. Up here is our frequency display. It'll show TX for transmit, RX here. It'll show the clarifier mode for the fine clarifier here. You can see that right now it's in receive mode. And once again, if you change this to do receive and transmit, it will show you here that it's tracking on both. Shows you your channel option here, and it also shows you your frequency. Over here is your channel selector. The radio does have the band option and the VFO option. So let's go into that first. So let's discuss the band VFO switch and how this works. This radio is a bit different. You know, a lot of exports have the switch up here to flip between the bands. This one does it through the switch and the menu operation. So we flip it into the band mode here. You'll see the band is displayed on the meter readout over here. And we're in band 4, which is going to be our 11 meter mode in the expanded frequency operation of this radio. You do have to do a modification to get it out of the 10 meter mode. These are, again, export radios. They're sold as 10 meter radios. We have to modify them for the extended frequencies and to cover 11 meters. So as we flip the channel selector, you'll see it shows band 3, band 2, band 1, band 10, 9, 8, 7, etc. So you'll see like we're up in the 10 meter range now. And once again, band 4 is the 11 meter range. That's how you change the band. Now, your channel selector right now is changing the band. When we flip it back into this middle position, now we're in that band and it acts like a normal channel operation. Now, the other option for this radio is to operate it as a VFO. And when we go into this mode, it can tune continuous tuning all the way from the lowest frequency to the highest frequency that it'll operate. This radio will operate, or at least its range will be 30.1050 megahertz all the way down to 24 megahertz. So that's the expanded frequency operation mode. And as you can see, it's just continuous tuning. You can adjust the increments, and we'll show you how to do that. And that's how the band VFO options work. And if we flip back to the middle position here, it does take us back into the band operation. To modify the Striker 955 HP for extended frequency operation, you do have to remove a part from the radio, a small resistor. It's a surface mount technology part, so very, very small. Means you need a very fine tip soldering iron, and it is a little bit difficult to do. This is not an easy modification per se, like some of the other export radios. To remove the resistor, you're going to find U502 here in this area, and you'll see over here there's two small resistors. You're going to be removing the one that's closer to the front of the radio. Up here's the front of the radio. So you'll be removing this resistor right here. We'll unsolder it and show you afterwards what it looks like. So we did unsolder the resistor that was right here. That spot is now empty, and let me show you the resistor. Okay, for those of you who aren't familiar with surface mount technology parts, this is one of the case screws that holds the cover on the radio, just for size reference. This is the resistor we just removed. So you get an idea how fine tip your soldering iron needs to be and how small these parts are on the radio. So that is what we just removed. If you go program, we're in the scan function here. We go up, flip it to Roger beep. If we press the function option, it takes us in, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Roger beep options to choose from. And we will go through and show those to you on the air so you can hear them. They do little da-da-da-da-da-das, you know, that kind of thing, bunch of different ones. That's how the Roger beep, you can adjust it between those 5 different Roger beeps. All right, let's jump into the function menu. If you hold in the function menu for the function button for 3 seconds, it jumps you into the function menu. First thing is you can adjust the fine clarifier range. You can have it adjust 0.5 kilohertz, 1.5 kilohertz, or up to 2.5 kilohertz on the range. The next option is receive, transmit, or receive and transmit. This is for your fine clarifier. You can have your fine clarifier adjust only the receive frequency, only the transmit frequency, or it can adjust your receive and transmit tied together, and it will display up here the mode that it's operating in, as you can see up here under clarifier. So like when you unlock a clarifier on a radio for the receive and transmit to move together, that's what that would be. Okay, course clarifier, you can adjust the range and increments. So you can have it do 100 hertz, 1 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz, or 10 kilohertz. So let me show you an option of what this would look like. In the 5 kilohertz option, when we adjust the course clarifier, you'll see it drops down, and it has a maximum range of 10 kilohertz up or down. And you'll see over here it will show how far off center that you're moving. So that's a neat feature. You can adjust that. Up to 10 kilohertz, once again, difference. Okay, so we hold in the function button, go back into the menu. Automatic squelch control. This is on AM. If you set this up on AM, automatic squelch control, on AM, it'll automatically squelch and will only unsquelch when a signal breaks it. So that's the automatic squelch control if you don't want to do the manual squelch. Next up is the beep. When you have it on, anytime you touch anything, it beeps for any of the switches or other things. So that's the beep on or off. Most people want that off. Timeout timer, transmitter timeout timer. This is for if you happen to be driving along and you sit on your microphone or something, you don't want to be transmitting for an hour or something and burn up the finals in your radio, or if you know your microphone gets wedged between the seats or something. You can turn it off, or you can set the number of seconds before it times out. You don't want to set it to 30 seconds if you're a long talker, because it'll automatically stop transmitting after 30 seconds. So pick a reasonable amount of time that you don't want your radio to be transmitting for. You can set it up to 600 seconds. Next up, this is a squelch menu option. So when you have the squelch on and you're in scan mode, this is two options for that. The first option is a SQ option. This means when you're scanning, the scan would stop when a valid signal is detected, and the scan would resume after the signal disappears for 5 seconds. In the TI mode, a scan would stop when a valid signal is detected. The radio would resume scanning 5 seconds later, whether the signal disappears or not. So it just automatically will continue scanning after the signal is detected no matter what. The other one only starts scanning again once the signal disappears. Next up is something that goes along with that. This is the scan resume time. You can set this for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 15 seconds. Once again, when I was saying if the radio resumes scanning 5 seconds after a signal disappears, you can set it to do it 10 seconds, or it can wait 15 seconds before it starts scanning again. TSR, this is our SWR, transmitting SWR protection function. You can have it on or off. You can actually set the level in the software, I believe. I haven't jumped into the software yet, but on my other radios that have this option, you can set the SWR saying if it goes over a 5 or something, then turn it off and don't transmit. You can have it as low as a 2, but you can set it up how you want it on there. This is something you probably just want to leave on. It helps protect the radio. Same thing with the voltage. This is a voltage, transmit voltage indicator. If your voltage goes too high or too low, it'll stop transmitting to protect the radio. And that's what that does. You'd leave that on probably as well. LCD, this is so you can show the name Striker here. You can show the voltage here all the time, or you can show the name and the voltage rotating back and forth like we had it in part of the video. This is the option here for the number of seconds of delay on the rotating colors. So if you're someone that likes the colors to rotate through the radio, kind of the Christmas tree thing, you can set it up to a 10-second delay between colors. So it'll be red for 10 seconds, green for 10 seconds, blue for 10 seconds. So now we're back to the fine clarifier adjustment. One thing I will show you, if we go into VFO mode, and then we go into the menu, there's one adjustment that doesn't show up in the normal menu if you're in the band option, and that is your channel selector step option. So you can tune in different steps for VFO option. So obviously you don't want to be tuning through a VFO with everything in a very small increment. So you can set it up to do it in 1 megahertz, 1 kilohertz, etc. So that's an option here. So for instance, we can do it in 10 kilohertz steps. Let this set, and now we're back out. And as you can see, there's our tuning option for that. So that's a nice thing about the function menu. Once again, that option only comes up when you're in the VFO mode. So that's pretty much it for the function menu. And there are some options we'll show you once we get into the software and do that video. But that pretty much shows the function menu that you'll be using day to day in the radio. Okay, so Roger beep. I know you guys wanted to hear these Roger beeps. Some people asked me. So we will go to program, go to Roger beep. We'll set it on Roger beep 1.
Tudo telefonia, ó, tipo de informação, né? Fonia, ok? Eles colocam como telefonia, mas é fonia. Tá bom? Tudo a mesma coisa aqui, ó. No final, né? Tranquilo? Então, essas nomenclaturas, né, letras e números, né, tudo é uma forma, um padrão mais de uso profissional, mais indicado, né, para quem atua profissionalmente na área de telecomunicações ou manutenção de equipamentos, né? Você vai fazer manutenção, você pega lá o manual de equipamento, né, e vai ter todas essas siglas aqui. Pô, o que é isso, né? Tem marciano, jupiteriano, a linguagem dos Klingons. Não, hein? É a nossa linguagem técnica para todos esses tipos de emissão, ok? Seja FM, seja AM, seja SSB, bom, modos analógicos, modos digitais. Tá joia? Então, com isso a gente finaliza aqui as emissões, tá? Foi a parte primeira da tabela, a parte segunda e a parte final hoje, tranquilo? Amanhã, em legislação, a gente já entra aqui num outro departamento. Ok? Amanhã, vou chegar aqui, ó. Vai para o anexo B, tá bom? O que é o anexo B? O anexo B são as definições. Então, tudo aquilo que eu li nas tabelas e você não sabe o que é. A CDS. O que é a CDS, né? Modos, né, que você pode utilizar, né, quando está lá em demais modos, né? Modos digitais permitidos e demais modos permitidos. Nesses demais modos permitidos, essas definições aqui, ó. A CDS, né? Data Station por controle automático, ou seja, né, estação de dados controlados automaticamente, ok? Exemplo, olha lá. As digipeaters, nodes, gateways, APRS, WSPR, AULA, Entor, Pector, ok? Então, são todos modos em ACDS, tranquilo? Então, talvez você encontra na tabela, né, demais modos permitidos, né, entra aqui, ó, nessas definições, tá bom? A gente entra nas definições.
Agora são 18 horas, 16 minutos. E a gente lembra os amigos que agosto de 2023, a rodada Alto-falante, completando aí 23 anos, ok? Estamos indo aí para mais um aniversário, mais um aninho de rodada, tranquilo? E sempre com os cursos para ajudar os amigos. Lembrando que o curso de CW começa agora em janeiro. Quem tiver interesse, dia 2, segunda-feira, janeiro, começando aí mais 3 cursos. E o primeiro sempre é o de CW, ok? É o mais procurado, justamente por conta aí da promoção classe B. Então, quem for fazer promoção classe B, vai se preparando que em janeiro a gente começa aí, tá bom? Serão 4 meses de aulas, serão 7 turmas e até lá a gente vai falando, né, bem detalhadamente aí dos horários, das turmas, dos modos que você pode fazer o curso, via radiofrequência, via live, via playlist, ok? Várias opções. né, e alguma delas aí vai te ajudar, ok? Alguma dessas opções você consegue fazer e ir para a classe B numa boa, tá bom? Então, vamos em frente. 18 horas 17 minutos. Oportunidade com boa noite.
SRA 158 stock mic, a power mic, and a couple other mics. And this mic, everybody said sounded the best. So whoever did the testing on it figured out that this El Cheapo lightweight microphone, stock microphone, works well with the Stryker radio. Good loud audio sounded the cleanest and clearest with the stock microphone in my test. So you may run into something different, of course, on your own, but just showing you what it came with. All right, so we'll wrap up the overview. Once again, this is the Stryker SR955HP, brand new single sideband radio from Stryker. I apologize for the long review. I wanted to just bust it all out in one video rather than doing multiple videos. So if you sat through all of this and made it to the end, congratulations, there you go. The radio itself, been testing it out so far. I'm not doing a review right now. This is just an overview, but I can say on single sideband, been very stable so far. So they definitely have met that qualification that they were trying to do, and audio reports have been excellent. Very good, clear, clean, punchy audio on single sideband. So performance-wise, I'm pretty happy with what I've seen so far. Output's been very good. With the tune, you're looking upwards 70, 82 watts. I've heard some higher numbers than that, but I think 70 to 80 is probably what you be experiencing, and without pushing it too hard. The overall radio has been operational fine. I haven't found any bugs or anything, but I will be doing my full written review, discussing things I like and dislike about the radio, and getting into it more and showing all the pictures and everything. So the written review will be up on the website, cbradiomagazine.com, and we will be posting a video showing the software as well and some on-air audio checks we've done as well, just to let people know what it sounds like on the air. Once again, Stryker SR955HP. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll try and get that written review tied up and up on the website, cbradiomagazine.com.
Radio 161, great to make the hookup there, Matt. Yeah, Matt J. Juliet Alpha Yankee was my name for your further.
Hi, this is cbradiomagazine.com, and since there haven't been a whole lot of new radios on the market, we decided to go back in time today, and we're going to take a look at the Midland 79-290 transceiver. This is a single sideband radio. These are produced in the mid to late 90s, and they stopped production in the early 2000s. So it hasn't been made for about 10, 11 years now, and these radios were quite interesting when they came out. They were Midland's last single sideband radio they produced. They were about 2 inches tall, so they could be mounted directly in your dash. Very few radios can do that, even today. It had a detachable face on it. The radio had memory frequencies, digital display, dual watch, scan, and it also could be converted for your free band frequencies, and it can go up into the ham radio frequencies, even though at the time it was marketed as a standard CB radio. Did have quite a lot of features in it. So very interesting radio. I'll walk you through the controls real quick and show you some of the features. We'll discuss how to do the modification to open it up for the extra frequencies, show you inside some of the quick tuning locations, and probably it'll give you a good understanding of the radio. And we should have an on-the-air audio test. Just check back with somebody else on the air and see what they think of the sound. So first of all, over on the left-hand side here, we've got the volume. This is it's kind of not an inner and outer knobs. There's one that's further away and one that's closer to the radio. So further away here is your on-off and volume. Inside here is your squelch, a little closer to the radio. 4-pin Midland connection. Of course, Midland loves to be quirky with their radios. So 4-pin, not a standard Cobra 4-pin, Midland 4-pin. Up here is your TX display. When you key up, you'll see the light come on. Weather channels. If you press the weather channel button, you can go in here, and it has 10 weather channels to choose from.
Good morning, then becoming southeast 15 Sunday. Chance of showers.
Of course, you want to go back to the CB. Let's press the weather channel again. Channel 19 button right below that just takes you to automatic channel 19. I'll show you something too. Since we're showing a frequency display, for those of you like to see the channel display, of course, that's an option as well. Over here's frequency button. Last channel recall. So let's say we keyed up on 38, and then we've dropped down to 32, and we want to go back to the last channel we keyed up on. Last channel recall, press that, takes you back. You can toggle between the last channel you keyed up on. Over here, we've got our actual detachable faceplate button. To detach, the faceplate comes off for protection, so that you don't get it stolen, I guess, like the old days of car stereos. Seems like people aren't stealing stuff as much anymore, in car stereos and stuff, since the price on car stereos have come down so much. So, I don't know how much useful it would be these days, but if you live in a bad area, of course, having a detachable face radio is useful. Here is a mode button to go in. It says BD on it. You can go in between your different modes. The radio shows FM. This radio does not have an FM module in it, even though it shows that. So AM, upper sideband, and lower sideband would be the modes available on this radio, and that's how you toggle between those. Channel 9, automatic switch to go there. And again, our frequency button right below that, so you can change between a channel display or a frequency display. Down below, we've got a local DX button. Radio doesn't have an RF gain control on it. It's a very small radio, so not a whole room on the faceplate. So no RF gain. You have to have the local DX button. You press it, gives you, cut back on your signal strength of the incoming signals, and this would be the DX position, or just open. Same thing with the microphone gain, not a microphone gain control on this. If you want to lower your microphone gain, you press the mic button. If you want it wide open, you just leave it off. Memory frequencies, you can store in here. It's just a matter of going to the frequency, holding down the button. It will beep and flash. You'll see that we store that in there. We can go to another frequency, press down on the M2. And now if we go back to M1, you'll see channel 38's been stored in there. And we can go to M2 and it stores them in there. So you've got 4 memory frequencies you can store in there. There's a scan feature. So if we turn up the squelch, we can press the scan. It'll scan through until it hears a station break the squelch.
West, the other way from there, going towards Anacortes type direction.
And if nobody keys up again for a couple seconds, it will start scanning again. There it goes. And of course, it just scans through until it hits frequency where someone's talking.
Invited Angel over for dinner tonight.
There you go. So next option, we turn that one off. We can go to dual watch. So dual watch, you can go to one frequency, press the dual watch button, go to another frequency, press the dual watch button. It will switch back and forth in between frequencies.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would do. I watched the
When frequency breaks the squelch, it'll stay there. And when it goes back down, it'll start the dual watch function again. So very cool. This also works in the expanded mode, so that is a neat feature as well. Channel control over on the right side here, and down below we've got your fine clarifier and your coarse clarifier as the closer knob to the radio. So those are the basic features. Not a whole lot on the face. This isn't a menu-driven radio like the newer ones. This is a little old school, kind of before that. They would have been able to, of course, incorporate the microphone gain controls and RF gain stuff into it if they'd had that back at that point. But
agora são 18h26. E a gente cumprimenta o amigo Clóvis. Um grande abraço. Tudo de bom, Clóvis. Tudo em paz, tranquilo? Aqui uma chuvinha miúda, tá bom? Dia inteiro, né? Dia inteiro nublado, chuvinha miúda, 18 graus. Tá bom. Sem problemas, é ou não é? Obrigado aí pelos votos, também um baita abraço e tudo de bom pro amigo. Bom, passando aí uma informação importante para os amigos. Doação de sangue, ok? Eu sempre falo na rodada, e quem puder colaborar, dá uma forcinha, não arranca um pedaço, ok? Você doa só um pouquinho de sangue e salva uma vida. Temos aí os hemocentros, hospitais e vários referenciais. Em todos os rincões aí do Brasil, você pega o endereço na internet, ok? dá uma olhadinha e colabore. Doe um pouquinho de sangue e salve uma vida. Esse ano aqui eu já doei 3 vezes, ok? A primeira e a segunda vez para o Murilinho, filho aí do nosso amigo Fernando, estava hospitalizado na UTI, e a última agora, né, coisa de um mês e pouco atrás, normal. É uma doação de sangue sem destinatário, né, uma vez que o Murilinho já está fora aí de risco, já saiu do hospital, já saiu da UTI, mas a gente faz a nossa parte, né, colabora. Então, quem puder, doa sangue, doe sangue, porque salva uma vida, ok? Então, tá aí. E vamos em frente. Oportunidade aos amigos, com boa noite.
If you want to go into the ham radio.
Opa, boa noite. PY2EXU, adiante. Ok. Boa noite, Luiz. Grande abraço, hein? PY2 Uniforme Lima November, operando base, Rafar, pertinho de Piracicaba. E aí, Luiz, muito frio, muita chuva, 18 graus São Paulo, hein? 18 graus, nublado, e o dia inteiro aí, chove, para, enfim, né? Chuvinha miúda, né? Mas chovendo direto. Tá bom? Tá tranquilo aqui, viu, Luiz? Tudo em paz, família tá boa, né? Todo mundo com saúde, ok? E por essas bandas aí, como que andam as coisas? PY2 Uniforme, Lima November, Luiz Rafar, adiante.
Ok, quer telefone, Papa Yankee 2. Por favor, PY2 Uniforme Lima November.
Positivo. PY2 Uniforme Lima November, Luiz, operando base por Rafar, pertinho de Piracicaba. Maravilha, Luiz. Agora, fim de ano, o pessoal desacelera, né? Muita gente já saindo de férias e muita gente já tirando uns dias para descanso, não é? Então, tá aí. E de resto, como que anda a antena e a torre, rádio, enfim. Né? Tem mexido aí, ô Luiz? Acertado alguma coisa? Deixa eu abrir espaço aí para os amigos. Mais alguém na frequência? Ok. Aqui sem novidades, tá bom? Por aqui tudo igual, né? Tudo como dantes no quartel de Abrantes. E mexida mesmo, se der, o ano que vem. Tá bom, Luiz, esse ano eu não mexo mais em nada, hein? Ano que vem pode ser, né? Sobrando, com certeza, um QSJ, né? Senão, negativo. Tá bom? E aí, como que tá a torre? Bom, a torre você fez manutenção recentemente, né? Se não me falha a memória, não tem o que? Acho que 1 ano e meio, né? 1 ano e meio é recente aí que você fez a manutenção, né? Positivo, positivo. Tá aí, Clóvis. Obrigado aí pela informação. Distância em linha reta, né? Maravilha. Pela estrada dá uns 130, mais ou menos. Em linha reta, 111 quilômetros. Então tá aí. Fala, Luiz. PY2 Uniforme Lima November, Rafar. Adiante. Ok. PY2 Uniforme Lima November. Rafar. Amigo Luiz. PY2EXU Paulo. Aeroporto de Congonhas, São Paulo. Então tá aí, fica à vontade, tá bom, Luiz? Vai ficar só na coruja. Então fica à vontade aí, grande abraço, um bom jantar, um bom descanso. E qualquer coisa amanhã aparece aí, tá bom? Te aguardo aí na primeira edição ou segunda edição. Tá bom, Luiz? Só me comenta dos amigos aí pro Rafar e mediações, ok? J. Renato, Rodrigo, né? Enfim. E a turminha aí, tá tudo bem, ô Luiz? Todos têm mantido contato com eles? Comenta pra gente.
Tudo tranquilo, viu, Paulo? Tudo tranquilo. E 1.4. Olhando um pouquinho aí uma boa aí numa distância, hein? E a gente estava comentando sobre, né? Até falei pra ele, ó, um cartãozinho vermelho, ó, por enquanto, esse 24 na rua, por favor, tá bom? Tá tudo bem, tá tudo bem, valeu.
Ok. PY2EXU Uniforme Lima November. Luiz, lá por Rafar. Pertinho de Piracicaba. Maravilha, Luiz. Então tá aí. Grande abraço, então. E fica à vontade. Encontrando esses amigos, manda o nosso abraço, tá bom? E quanto ao Clóvis, é verdade, né? É isso aí. É a mais pura verdade, né, o Clóvis? Agora é só correr atrás, hein? Radinho, indicativo aí, licença e resolvido, né? E tudo resolvido. Bom, oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
Newer radio, and it can be expanded for those extra frequencies, which is, the part that most people are really interested in. Again, if you're into freebanding and you want to get up into those upper frequencies, this is good radio for that. Opens it up, you can get into freeband. It's actually kind of cool because you can save the memory again of the freeband station. You can go back into the CB frequencies and save that as a memory. And you can actually switch between without switching the band, which is a neat function for memory.
Deixa eu dar boa noite aqui para o nosso amigo Eli. Eli Fernando Bezerra. Grande abraço, tá bom? PY2 Victor Sierra Foxtrot. Por Rosana, São Paulo. Obrigado pelos votos. Tá bom, Eli. Um baita abraço e tudo de bom. Estamos aí com PY2 Victor Sierra Foxtrot. Também via internet, aí na live, com a gente. Lembrando, todos os amigos via radiofrequência e via internet, que dia 2, segunda-feira, começando mais um curso. Quem pretende fazer promoção classe B, vai se preparando, ok? Teremos 7 turmas, temos aí 3 opções. Você poderá fazer o curso via radiofrequência, via internet, na live e via playlist, ok? A primeira e a segunda opção, nos horários aí programados, ok? 5 horas, primeira edição, e 17 horas, segunda edição. Via playlist, você escolhe o horário e faz lá no nosso canal, ok? É o curso completo de CW, 50 videoaulas e a qualquer momento aí tira dúvidas com a gente, tranquilo? Então, boa sorte e vamos em frente. Oportunidade com boa noite.
And it's similar in design to their 680, 880. It's got some of the same functions, menu options. It's a newer style. They've gone more towards the newer style radios, surface mount technology inside, digital display, menu-driven options. Very stable on frequency. And, from what we're going to test, hopefully it's going to be a good talker. But let's turn on the radio, give everyone a look here. So, radio comes on. We've got backlit control knobs here, digital display here. We've got all of our buttons here. These are all lit up. Let me turn out the lights real quick. So you can see backlit knobs, backlit writing on the controls. So you can see what you're doing. The only control that isn't lit up is the fine and coarse clarifier over on the right side, but it is labeled as here on the face. All of your buttons light up. As you press them, you'll see the red letting you know which one you have activated. So all of these light up. Let me turn the lights back on. All right. So let's go through the knobs real quick and the controls, and then we'll go to the buttons, then we'll go into the menu, and we'll talk all through the different functions of the radio. Starting on the left side, on-off control in the middle. It's also your volume. Squelch on the outside. Over here on the right side, we've got your channel selector. You can scroll through really quickly. Haven't had any problems with it missing frequencies like some of the knobs. Control isn't, going to be like an old Unit and Grant or a Cobra 29, those types of radios. They had that real solid feel, but it definitely has a good click to it as you change through. So I give it a plus on that. They're definitely better than some of the other radios where the controls felt a little flimsy as you try and flip through. Below this, that is your fine and coarse clarifier. Fine clarifiers on the inside, coarse clarifiers on the outside. Let's go to our buttons. Okay, so let's discuss the buttons that are on the side and the bottom here, starting off on the left-hand side. You've got your signal strength RF meter, signal strength incoming signals. When you key up, shows your RF output. If you press it once, it takes you into calibration mode. If you press down on the key, and then you can use the frequency control to adjust where the calibration setting will be. You want it right on the calibration. And then when you push this button one more time, it takes you into SWR. Key up and it shows your SWR. It shows it both on the bar graph here, and it shows in an actual digital readout. So very cool for that. Last time, press it, it'll take you back to your SRF menu. CBPA function. PA, CB. Pretty simple for that. Memory and memory scan. Memory scan and memory scan. So you got a couple options here. You can go into a scan function. We can turn up our squelch and it'll go through the frequencies. When the squelch is broken, it'll stop. There is a memory scan option. You can save frequencies and then scan those frequencies. What it'll do is it'll only scan the frequencies that you have saved. So let me show you how to save a frequency. Well, clear. Okay, so first of all, we'll go to channel 6, for instance. We'll hold in the memory button. It'll save it. And we'll go to channel 38. We'll save it. Channel 19. Save it. And now we can go into our memory scan. There we go. And you'll see it's only scanning the frequencies that I have selected. So you have the scan function, so you can scan through the entire 40 channels. And you have your memory scan. You can save your memory frequencies and then only scan them. There's one other option where you can save the memory frequencies, and then as you turn the control, it will only show the memory frequencies. That's the last option. 919 and norm button shows channel 9, channel 19, and back to norm. That's a quick access option. A&L, noise blank, and both of them. So you can select one, the other, or both. In lower sideband, upper sideband mode, only the noise blank comes on.
Radio 161, great to make the hookup there, Matt. Yeah, Matt, J. Juliet Alpha Yankee was my name for your further information.
Hi, this is CBRadioMagazine.com, and today we're going to take a look at the Cobra 29LX. This is a follow-up to the 50th anniversary edition 29LX LE, which was a limited edition radio. They've removed the 50th edition tab from this, and this is just the new 29LX version. So it's their continuing production model of the new digital Cobra 29. Okay, so we have the new Cobra 29LX radio powered on, and right away you'll notice it doesn't have the 50th anniversary badge here on the left-hand side. Also, you'll notice it does have a clock showing up on the display, and that's one of the new features on the new version of this radio. So let's go through the features real quick, and then I'll talk about some of the new features that are on here. Standard 4-pin connector over here. Noise blank A&L button up here. Can go noise blank ANL or off. SRF, SWR calibration button here for calibration mode on the meter, SWR mode on the meter, or S-unit RF power reading on the meter here. Volume on-off knob on the inside, squelch control on the outside, dynamic here for your microphone gain, channel selector here, but it's also our menu button. It allows us to enter the menu for the display here that gets into some different functions. RF gain control, delta tune here. We've got talk back on the inside. It's variable talk back with an off switch, so you can turn it all the way off, or you can turn up your talk back. SWR calibration control here for when you're going to be calibrating for SWR. And our buttons up here, we've got a scan. This gets us in to scan through the frequency. Also, you can set your memory channels using this button and then scan only the memory frequencies. That's kind of a cool feature. Instant channel 919. This is your CB weather channel PA selector, so it selects between the different modes. And this is your dimming control here, and also your escape button to jump out of the menu when you jump in to the menu options to get into the different functions. So let me show you the scan function real quick for this. If we press the scan button, you'll see it'll start scanning through the frequencies until it starts hitting a frequency that we've got people talking on. I don't have the volume turned up right now, but you can see on the S meter here. And if we turn the squelch up a bit more, it'll continue to scan through the band. Now, we can also press it again and it goes into a memory scan function. We've set certain frequencies up with a memory. So channel 16, channel 22, channel 26, and you'll see it'll go directly scanning only the channels that we want. So that's a nice feature. When we want to select a frequency, so let's say channel 17, we want to put that in the memory, we just hold down the scan button for a second, and now you can see that it adds the memory function on there. And as we go through, you can see, hey, this one's been added to memory. Channel 17 is on the memory. Channel 18 is not on the memory. If we go into memory scan again, you'll see it goes only to the frequencies that we've selected. So that's a neat feature. Channel 19, instant selector switch, jumps between those, jumps back to our original frequency. So we're on 18, channel 9, channel 19, back to 18. CB weather channels, we got our weather frequencies here. You can use the channel selector knob, changes the different frequencies. One thing on these radios, I still notice that the weather board in here isn't real strong in picking up some of our weather channels compared to some other radios. So that's something they still could tweak with a little bit to make it better. PA, public address function, you press it one more time, and then back, press again here to go back to CB mode. Dim switch, obviously, dims the radio. And that's pretty much those functions there. These ones over here, noise blank, turns it on, ANL, noise blank ANL, or off, current SWR mode, calibration mode, and now back in SRF mode. So that's pretty much the radio main functions. Let's jump into the menu options. And this is going to be different from the original LX LE version. So for the clock, we can set the clock. So the clock is now on. You can set the clock option. You can set the hours. So it will say it's 4 o'clock right now. You can set the minutes, 4:15. Then we can set the option. And of course, to set this, you just turn the knob left or right, and it goes from PM back to AM, back to PM. Or then when you're done, you can press the button, you push it in, exit, and now you can see 4:15 PM on there. So that's a new clock option. The clock stays on. If you turn the radio off, and then, of course, if you turn it back on, it'll still show the clock. If you disconnect power from the radio, clock goes away and needs to be reset. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's go back in the memory. Something else new on this radio, it has an alarm clock function. So you can set an alarm. And so we can go in here, set hours, 4:15. So maybe we'll set it for 4:17 here, PM. And you can set the snooze. You can set the how many minutes for a snooze. You can set the alarm length, how long it's going to go off. If you want it to go off 40 up to, whatever you want here for seconds. So now we've gone back out. So the alarm's going to come on at 4:17. Next one here that's new is there's a set countdown. There's a countdown timer on this. So you can go in, goes into this alarm clock mode. You can set the number of hours. So we can set it for 0 or up to 14, I believe here. Let's see. Yeah, and then it goes back to 0. You can set the number of minutes. So we can set this for 5-minute countdown or 4-minute countdown. So here's our countdown timer. And that'll count down, and in 4 minutes, that alarm will go off. Next option here, ketones. You can select on or off to turn off the beep sound that you hear as you go through these. Weather alerts, you can turn off the weather alert function to tell you it beeps, of course, when there's a weather alert. Display color, this is a neat one, of course. A lot of people are interested. You can change the color of the actual display for this radio.
Falamos do modo 1, o RCDS, e agora, segunda opção, AM. Todo mundo conhece, né? Amplitude modulada, ok? O que a legislação fala? Fala o seguinte, ó, AM, amplitude modulada, modo de emissão, que representa a comunicação em fonia AM analógica. Suas características estão elencadas no item A6 do anexo A, ok? Tem outras tabelas que a gente vai ver mais para frente, tá bom? Qual que é a característica desse modo AM, amplitude modulada, ok? Aqui a gente só vai ler a relação de modos, né, que você pode utilizar, sem nos aprofundarmos, tranquilo? Então, modo AM, conforme citado no plano de faixas, não é válido para modos digitais ou voz digital. Bom, aqui é meio lógico, né? Não teria nem necessidade de colocar essa parte final aqui. O negócio de falar. Modo AM, né, conforme citado no plano de faixas, não é válido para modos digitais ou voz digital, né, enfim. É meio redundante, mas tudo bem. A gente já está vendo aqui que a segunda opção, amplitude modulada, ok? 3. Quando está escrito ali, ó, aplicação, utilização prioritária da subfaixa, ok? Você vai ver lá nas definições, né, nos modos de operações, aplicação, ok? Você ler na outra tabela, aplicação, é isso que está aqui, ó, utilização prioritária da subfaixa, respeitando o modo de emissão destinado a essa mesma subfaixa, ok? As aplicações especificadas de uso exclusivo restringe o uso da subfaixa apenas a aplicação citada. Isso é o seguinte, tá? Quando você vê naquela indicação exclusivo, né, é só aquela finalidade. Vou te dar exemplo. A gente já estudou, né, as subfaixas, tabelas, todas as tabelas do radioamadorismo, a resolução 697/2018, tabela no ato 9.106/2018, ok? Portanto, toda vez que você vê exclusivo, é somente aquela possibilidade, ok? Vou te dar exemplo, então. Entrada e saída dos repetidores. Tá? Todo segmento que tiver saída e faixa, saída ou entrada dos repetidores, você vai ver esse exclusivo. Tá?
Bom, a gente vai dar intervalo e já retornando, ok? Hoje, definições. Quem quiser dar uma olhada, ato 9.106/2018. Tranquilo? Entendido, Luiz? Só via internet. Agora, com a gente aí na live. Então, tá bom. Vê aquele radião? Cobra, Luiz? Que rádio, hein? Cobra 29XL, né? Aquele rádio, se eu não me engano, foi uma edição limitada, né? Comemorativa lá dos, não sei quantos anos lá da Cobra, né? Agora um presidente, tá aí, ó. Presidente Walker 2. Radião também, hein? Faz belíssimos equipamentos. Lembrando, os amigos, estamos aí no mês, né? Nem semana, né? Tem 2 semanas que eu estou pondo só rádio de 11 metros. Intercalando, né, com rádios para nós, radioamadores, e equipamentos de 11 metros. Tá bom? Várias marcas, vários fabricantes, né, edições limitadas, como foi do Cobra, ok? Um rádio bem legal. E agora outras opções aí de equipamentos. São 18 horas e 57 minutos. Oportunidade com boa noite.
Crazy thing is, everything that's inside this radio is basically inside this one and more. You're getting a ton of features. Cars are smaller nowadays. They don't have as much room for mounting. People are looking for sleeker looking devices. And that's where some of these new school radios really shine. They're really compact and still do everything that the old radios did. This is the back of the President Walker too. And because it shares the same chassis as the President Richard, it ended up with a huge heat sink on here, which is just great for heat dissipation. You're never going to have a problem on this one overheating. Has your antenna connector here. This little guy here is where you can plug in an external Vox microphone. And if you don't know what Vox is, I'll discuss that more. This is your PA speaker jack, and this is your external speaker jack. And of course, we have a universal 3-pin connector on the back. And as we mentioned, cool old school styling blended with new school digital display and a ton of features built in. I love the white LED display on the SRF meter. Really easy to read, and I really like that. The digital display, really easy to read as well, nice and big. And feature-wise, we've got a ton of things to go through, but let's just go through the main controls first. This is your USB charging port, just like on the President Richard. 5-volt, 2.1 amp. You can charge your cell phone here. If you don't have a charging port in your car, install this radio, and now you have one as well. Just kind of an added bonus. Has a 6-pin microphone, standard President, and it has this microphone with up-down buttons. This is the standard microphone they've been selling with the Richard, the Walker, the President McKinley, the President Lincoln too. This is a great microphone for these radios. They match this up really, really well. I have to tell you guys, if you have a President Lincoln too, you have a President McKinley, you're like, oh, which aftermarket microphone should I put on there? Don't. Just put the stock microphone unless you really need noise canceling or something else. It matches up great audio. So, and other people will tell you this too. I'm not the only one saying this. Volume on-off switch on the inside here. Squelch on the outside. Automatic squelch controls all the way down in the lower position. RF power here. It has variable power, guys. You can lower your power down, raise your power up. This is your RF gain on the outside, microphone gain on the inside. This is your channel changing control here. It's also your menu control button if you press it in. We have a weather button here to turn on the weather frequencies. And if I press that, you'll see we go into the weather channels. We've got a CBPA switch, an EMG1 off, and EMG2 switch. We've got a noise blank, ANL, and high cut switch over here. There's a talkback button as well as a Vox button. So that's kind of your general features, and I'll show you how each one of these works. All right, let's dive into some of the deeper features on this radio. The first thing is the weather frequencies. They don't have that on the Richard. There's a mode switch here on the Richard, so this is cool. This has your weather channel. So if you're driving around, want a weather report locally, or you want a weather alert, that's what this is for. So you press the button once, you'll see it shows up here, and you can flip through the different frequencies. Let me turn up the volume here.
Wednesday, rain, high 11. Normals for the period, low, Fort Townsend, cloudy 45. Victoria Airport,
So you'll see you get your different frequencies in there. So you get 7 choices, which is pretty standard across the United States. And you just use the mode channel knob here to change between them. There's actually also an alert on here. If you hold it in, it goes off, or hold it in and it goes on. And that's a long press. And that will alert you if you're in CB mode, unless you're talking on channel 19 to somebody and you're driving down the road, and there's a National Weather Service alert. It'll actually sound a siren, and it'll send you over to the weather mode so you can actually hear what the alert is. So if there's tornadoes or tsunamis, I don't know, whatever it is that you're running into for an alert, it'll tell you that. And I've actually had that come on with a radio while I was driving, and there was an alert about a winter storm. So kind of cool when that actually does work and you're using your radio doing CB, and then that pops in there. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. All right, that's off. Next feature over here is your EMG1 and EMG2. Now, normally you used to have a channel 19 switch, and you can still set that up this way, but you can actually choose the channel that you want. So for example, I chose channel 6 on the upper one, channel 19 on the lower one. So if you have 2 channels that are like your favorite channels in the world, and you just want to be able to flip between those, you can do that, or you can set it to the off position and then use the rotary knob. But yeah, you can just go up, down, and there you go. So that's a neat one. Over here, we've got TalkBack, and this is a nice feature for a C radio if you want to hear what you're sounding like as you key through the microphone. So I have the TalkBack on. When I press on the push to talk button and I talk, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 audio, and I don't have it turned up very loud. You can push the button in and turn it off. 1, 2, 3. Now you have no TalkBack, or you can push it to turn it on, and then also you can key up and you can adjust the setting. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We have it set at level 5 there. It goes up from level 1 all the way up to level 9. So if you wanted to hear what you sound like on the air for TalkBack reasons, or hear what road noise sounded like in the background, TalkBack is a good function for that. We're getting a little bit of squealing because we're a little bit close to the radio itself. As you move the microphone farther away, that shouldn't be an issue, or you can turn your TalkBack down.
Agora são 19h03 e uma informação importante para os amigos. Nosso grande amigo Magnum já está fora do hospital, ok? Quem passou a informação foi o Sérgio, PY2EXU Sierra Alpha Charlie, que também esteve hospitalizado, ok? E agora ambos fora de perigo. Então, para quem não sabe, o Magnum é o responsável lá do churrasquinho no ponto de encontros, ok? Também radioamador, né? Grande amigo nosso. Ficou hospitalizado ali, acho que uma semana, 10 dias. E agora já tem, acho que uns 10 dias também que está fora aí do hospital, se recuperando, tá bom? Como o próximo ponto de encontros, só no dia 8, domingo, janeiro de 2023, eu acho que até lá ele vai estar aí firme e forte para participar do encontro, ok? Então, quem conhece o Magno, uma boa notícia, ele está fora lá do hospital já há uns 10 dias, tá bom? Fica a dica aí para os amigos. E agora, na semana aí dos 11 metros, trazendo aí vários modelos de rádios, de lançamentos, de rádios comemorativos como Cobra e outras marcas, né, que fizeram alguns modelos comemorando lá 30, 40, 50 anos de atividade, ok? Hoje com Presidente Walker 2, um radinho aí de 11 metros, bem legal e bem interessante. Esse que está na tela, ele tem a função High Cut, né? Essa função é bem legal pelo seguinte, né? Elimina chiados aí, dá uma limpada muito boa no áudio, ok? Tem filtros de corta baixo, corta alta, isso ajuda muito aí na hora de ouvir num DX, né? Um amigo lá de longe, né? Você dá uma limpada, tira muito ruído, muito chiado, é bem interessante. Bom, então vamos lá, oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
You can see I turned it all the way off basically, and it just dims this display on the right hand side. If we go to the next feature, this is where you would set those channels. So we can set it for channel 6, channel 9 for EMG1, EMG2. We can set it to whatever we want, and that's what's affected over here on this switch. Next feature is SWR. This function, we can test our SWR. When you go into this, you just press the button once, and now it'll check our SWR, and you can see we've got a really good match. So we're at 1.0 because we're going to a dummy load. But for instance, if I switch the switch over here and go to an open switch, you'll see it jumps up to 3.0. So it will let you know right away if you've got a bad match on your antenna. We push that again to go out of that mode. And microphone type. So this would be for the electric microphone that comes with it. It's always hard for me to say that one because it's not electric, it's electret, R-E-T. Oh, and if you go too long, then it goes out of the menu. So we can go into there and we can select for a dynamic microphone if we had that, if we were going to use that as an aftermarket microphone. The PA setting. Now this one, I'm going to go through this again. It's a little complicated. I'll actually pull up the manual here when I read through this, just so I get it right. It's a neat PA setting on this radio, and the reason that it's neat is because you can have it go through in a couple different ways. First is the LN, which you saw up there, and that means the modulation of the microphone is transmitted to a PA speaker. The received signal is transmitted to the internal speaker in the radio. The other option is OF, and that means only the modulation of the microphone is transmitted to the PA speaker. So that would be like, let's say you're only using this for public announcements or something. That would be that mode for that. You wouldn't be hearing the received through there. And then there's a PA mode, and that's the modulation of the microphone and the received signal are transmitted through the public address loudspeaker. So if you were sitting outside your car and you had a PA speaker outside, you could set it up so that you could hear people. And if you talked through, you could actually go through the PA as well. So that's the three different functions on that. And the last thing is reset. So if you wanted to reset all of the features in here, it resets everything in the radio. So if you had a Vox setting or you had the EMG button set, you would do the reset and it would reset everything on the radio. The President Walker 2 does have a scan feature, and it's a little different than some other radios. You can hear the static right now. I'll actually just turn it to the automatic squelch control. And the way it works is you hold down the microphone button, either the up or the down, and you'll start holding it down and you'll see the channels flipping, and it's changing, but it's not scanning yet. And then you'll see a little dot appear. When the dot appears, then it is scanning, and then when someone's signal breaks the squelch level, it'll stop on that frequency. So I'll hold it down, you'll see it flying through the channels. It's just changing, it's not scanning. And then all of a sudden that little dot appears and it's flashing. Now it's in the scan function, and if someone breaks the squelch, it'll pop through. And you can click it left or right and have it go, or sorry, click the up down buttons and it'll go up or down on the scanning.
Righto, every now and again I get one of these Uniden Bearcat 980 SSB units that I find in my pile. This one was in a box that I happen to see in my mess. And every time I get one of these, I learn a little bit more about what they do, how they do it, and you know, just the functionality, I suppose, is pretty much what I'm talking about. And they do have a lot of different functions that I'm still learning. I never seem to be in front of one for long enough to really do much. At the moment, I'm just generating a signal. I've actually gone over to the IFR 500 today, so there's no signal there. Now I'm going to put through 0.5 of a microvolt, which is designated right there. And yeah, we're hearing that fine. And when I take it down to 0.2 of a microvolt, still hearing it. Sort of a 0.1 and under, definitely losing it there, which is understandable. That's minus 125 dBm. But at 0.5, really nice. Okay, definitely had enough of that. Enough to show that, yes, that's sequentially going up as it should, and definitely, excuse me, as I was starting its range, I was moving up from 5 microvolts up to about 50 microvolts, and then went a bit past that. Got a bit noisy. Now, these things on transmit, I'm on PEP at the moment on the IFR 500, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello, 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 hello. That's about 12 watts PEP. It doesn't get any more 12 watts PEP than that. Actually, this is obviously one that hasn't been played with in any way. They can do more, but you know, quite seriously. And AM, let's have a look at what we're looking at there. Hello, 1, 2. Obviously, it's going to swing on the PEP.
Ô, grande Fernando, boa noite. PY2EXU Tango Mike Oscar, grande abraço. Tudo em paz, tranquilo, Fernando? Estamos aí com os amigos vendo rádios de 11 metros, hein? Temos vários modelos, várias marcas, ok? E agora na telinha, um Uniden, modelo 980 SSB, hein? Radinho bem bacana, hein? Moderno, bonito. Matando as saudades lá dos 11 metros, viu, Fernando? E aí, tudo em paz, tranquilo? Família, Murilinho, conta pra gente. PY2EXU Tango Mike Oscar, grande abraço, adiante.
Ok, 19 horas 2 minutos. Mapinha aqui 2ECO uniforme, PY2 Tango Mike Oscar. Fala aí pelo aeroporto de Congonhas e eu por cá, aeroporto Campo de Marte. Beleza, Paulo? Boa noite aí. 73 a você, 73 a todos os amigos, Coruja, pessoal do YouTube, tá bom? Coruja aí, todo mundo, espero que esteja todo bem contigo, que TH, família, aqui tá tudo certinho, graças a Deus. O pessoal do IBGE tá aqui, hein? Tô fazendo entrevista lá no salão de festa. E aí a patroa desceu lá com o Murilo lá pra responder, tá bom? No mais, novamente, espero que esteja tudo bem contigo, família. Tô aqui no YouTube aí, vendo esse Unidei. Cara, eu acho esse radinho muito tesudo. Radinho bonito, né? Expressão, eu acho ele bem bonito. Não sei se é bom. Eu tô falando aqui do Alico, né? O que eu tô aqui é o DR-105. O rádio aqui ele tem 2 metros, escuta aviação, escuta 70 centímetros e escuta lá pra cima 800 e 900, né? Beleza, Paulo? Aqui no mais tudo certinho, espero que esteja tudo beleza, vamos que vamos. Hoje é dia 21, antes de outro foi meu aniversário. 42 lá já nas costas, hein? 4.2. Mas vamos que vamos, hein, Paulo? P2 Tango Mike Oscar, PY2EXU Eco Uniforme.
Ok. P2 Tango Mike Oscar, Fernando Santana. Altos de Santana, né? É isso aí. Bom, primeiro, parabéns. Muita saúde, muitos anos de vida, muitas realizações, muito QSJ. Né? Assim, quando você estiver com muito QSJ, você dá de presente um rádio, uma torre pra gente, né, Fernando? É isso aí, tá torcendo, hein? Torcendo para entrar muito QSJ, ok? Mas depois da saúde, hein? Primeiro saúde, né, Fernando? Não só do amigo, né? De toda a família, ok? Legal, legal. Mais um aninho. O Luiz, lá de Rafar, está te mandando um baita abraço, tá bom? Um baita abraço e feliz aniversário. Também para a família e para o Murilinho, ok? Aliás, o Murilinho faz tempo que não vem bater um papo com a gente, né, Fernando? Hoje estava falando de doação de sangue, né? Eu estava comentando, né, lá atrás, quando a gente pedia, né, doadores, né, para o nosso amigo Murilinho, enfim. Hoje não mais necessário, né? Ainda bem está fora aí de risco, fora do hospital, mas falamos aí de doação de sangue, lembramos do Murilinho. Ô, Rafael, boa noite. Grande abraço, tudo de bom, ok? Rafael também sempre aí com a gente. Então, ô, Fernando, estava vendo que o teu sinal está baixo hoje. Né? Normalmente eu ouço final de escala, mas você já disse que está com rádio menor, né? Então, tranquilo. Mas nada para se preocupar, né? Pegando 9 cravado, ok? Sinal de 9 cravado, áudio muito bom, sem problemas. Eu ia até te falar, falei, bom, normalmente é final de escala, né? Mas quando eu pensei em te falar, você já falou que estava com rádio de menor potência. Então, explicado aí, tá bom, Fernando? E vamos em frente. Mais alguém na frequência? Então, deixa contigo, Fernando, P2 Tango Mike Oscar, adiante.
P2EXU Uniforme, P2 Tango Mike Oscar. Paulo, DKS aí, obrigado pelas recomendações. Deixa eu trocar aqui o rádio e você vê, peraí, 5 segundos.
I don't know. I'm just having a quick look here. This may answer his question when he has a bit of a look. What's diagnostics? Volts, RF out. Okay, all right. No, got myself in trouble there. Exit. I think what he's talking about is the beep that we're listening to as we're, like, if we change channels.
Agora sim. Agora voltou ao normal. Pode fazer o câmbio, Fernando, adiante.
Ok, positivo. O Pelé piorou, hein? Pelé piorou. O câncer chegou no coração, hein? É isso. Bom, agora eu tô aqui com 2980. Eu não liguei aqui para saber quantos watts está saindo. Ok, tá saindo 80 aqui, Paulo. Beleza, meu amigo? É isso. O que mais eu ia te falar? Bom, depois eu te explico. Mas é isso, Paulo. Tá perfeito agora. Agora sim.
Ok. Com o IAESO, a conversa é outra, né? Com ele é de igual para igual, né? Com a rodada alto-falante, já não é, Fernando? Esse radinho é muito, muito parrudo, hein? Então, para ver um rádio tão resistente como o FT2 980, ok? E o FT2 900 também, né? Que é o que eu usava antes. Usava o CV8000 da Icon e o FT2 900. Né? Tanto o CV8000 como o FT2 900, ambos com 75 watts. Bom, se o 2.900 aguentou tantos anos na minha mão, né, Fernando? Vamos partir para o 2.980, né? E não errei, hein? Acertei em cheio na escolha, tá bom? Tanto que eu comprei dois, né? Um para o batente e um para cá, né? Aeroporto de Congonhas. E os dois estão aí ponta firme, né? Dois radiaços, hein? É isso aí. Olha, para quem for comprar um rádio monobanda, potência e resistência estão aí, hein? Não tem para ninguém, né, Fernando? E radinho parrudo, hein? Esse é um rádio raçudo, né? E todo dia, que várias vezes eu dou câmbios aí de 10 minutos, né? Portadora de 10, 12 minutos, né? Para aula de CW e outras, né? Enfim. E o danado do rádio aguenta, né? Bem que eu tenho dois coolers em cima dele, né? Eu refrigero bem o rádio, mas que o bicho aguenta, aguenta, né, Fernando? Mais alguém na frequência? Pelo 2. Tango, Mike Oscar, adiante.
Ok, positivo. Papi aqui 2 Eco X-Ray Uniforme. P2 Tango Mike Oscar. Paulo, bom, além de, óbvio, você ter aí tudo certo, cabo, conector, o rádio, você ter esse rádio, todo rádio de VHF ele esquenta, né? Então é interessante você ter o monitoramento aí da tua estação, né? Ter conduta para você estar operando, para você poder dar o câmbio longo, perceber se está esquentando, aí você liga as ventoinhas externas, entendeu? E se não, cara, mas realmente o 2980 é outra coisa, é outra história, né? Ele tem uma função que eu gosto bastante de você apagar a tela, né? Dá pra você operar ele até sem os LED, na verdade, né? Ele funciona só o display, né? Mas é show de bola, show de bola. Outros rádios também, né, cara? E olha que eu e você aqui é o que eu sempre falo, né? Eu tô na Zona Norte, você está na Zona Sul. Dá um tempo aqui por causa do TOT, senão já cai. Esse rádio tem 3 minutos de TOT. Papi aqui 2 Eco X-Ray Uniforme e P2 Tango Mike Oscar. Isso pra você não pifar nem ele, nem qualquer equipamento, né? Tá tudo correto aí, porque, meu, é o rádio que solta 80 watts, mais que ele, acho que o TS2000, da Kenwood, e qual é aquele outro que você falou da Icon 7900, não lembro agora. Tem uns modelos aí que tem 100 watts, né? Da Icon, acho que é 1 ou é 2, hein? Agora eu não sei. Mas baita rádio, hein, Paulo? Boa noite, o Luiz aí, o Rafael. Tá os dois aí, né? 103, os macanudos aí. Via internet. Beleza, Paulo? É isso. PY2 Tango Mike Oscar, PY2EXU uniforme.
Ok. PY2 Tango Mike Oscar, Fernando, Zona Norte. Quanto a problemas de aquecimento, acho que o mais crítico, né, eu já peguei em vários rádios, Fernando, que é um problema até crônico, tá? É do porta-fusível, ok? Danado para dar mau contato. Até teve um vídeo que o Ivo fez, ok? Um dos grandes técnicos de equipamentos para nós radioamadores, tem vários técnicos, né, que eu conheço. E até já falei com o Ivo, né, várias vezes por telefone, né, não conheço ele pessoalmente, mas vejo, né, os vídeos que ele faz, enfim. E recentemente ele fez um vídeo sobre esse problema, ok? Do mau contato dos porta-fusíveis. Tá? Pode ser o tipo automotivo, né, que o pessoal acha que é melhor, né? Ele é um pouquinho melhor do que aquele redondinho de vidro, né, com os terminais metálicos e tal. É um pouquinho melhor, mas também não é grande coisa não, hein? Então, todo esse rádio que a gente compra, né, o porta-fusível é um lugar danado para dar problema, né? Ou seja, mau contato, ok? E o que acontece? Esquenta, né? Se está esquentando é porque tem mau contato. Aquilo não é para esquentar, né? Tem que deixar passar a corrente normalmente que o rádio consome, né? Então, quando esquenta é sinal que tem mau contato ali, ok? Eu fiz uma coisa que eu não aconselho ninguém fazer, né? Eu arranquei. Né? Já há muitos e muitos anos que eu opero, né? Todos os rádios sem o porta-fusível. Né? Sem os porta-fusíveis, né? São dois, né? Um no fio preto e no fio vermelho, ok? Pode ser o redondinho de vidro, pode ser o tipo automotivo, né? Todos me deram problemas, tá bom? O tipo automotivo, Fernando, cheguei a derreter um, tá bom? Ele não fundiu, ele não abriu, né? Melhor dizendo, ele não abriu por excesso de corrente, mas derreteu, né? Toda a resina, ok? Por quê, né? Porque o aquecimento é grande. Né? E na rodada eu meto bronca, né? Sempre potência máxima, né? Qualquer rádio, 50, 70, 80 watts, né? 100 watts é tudo potência máxima. E se o porta-fusível tiver com mau contato, esquenta mesmo, né? Então, sabendo disso, eu arranquei, né? Então, eu opero sem nenhum porta-fusível, tá bom? Agora, não recomendo, né? É bom, né, dar uma verificada, né? E, se for o caso, troca o porta-fusível, uma pontinha de solda, né, entre o fusível e o porta-fusível. Resolve, tá bom? Ajuda muito. Tá? Ou trocar, né, o porta-fusível para algo mais eficiente, ok? Que não dê mau contato, consequentemente não esquente. Tá? E rouba também, né? Nesse aquecimento lá do porta-fusível, ele está roubando. Né? Você vê que você não sai com a potência correta, por quê? Né? Porque ali já está roubando uma boa quantidade, ok? De tensão que entra no rádio, né? A corrente também, então é problema, né? Mas o contato é problema, né, Fernando? Mas tem um vídeo bem legal do Ivo, recomendo, ok? Pode dar uma olhada lá num dos vídeos, os últimos, né, que ele fala desse problema nos equipamentos. E é crônico, hein? Grande parte dos rádios é que o pessoal usa pouco, né? Câmbio curto. Eu faço câmbio de 15 minutos, tá? Na aula de CW, por exemplo, o rádio aguenta, né? Mas não tem porta-fusível, porque eu já sei que dá uma baita dor de cabeça porta-fusível. Bom, mais alguém na frequência? Então, deixo contigo, Fernando. PY2 Tango Mike Oscar, adiante.
Ok. Ok, positivo, espaço dado aí, 19 horas 27 minutos. PY2EXU uniforme, STPU2 Tango Mike Oscar. Então, cara, a porta pro fusível aqui, bom, você já viu já as QRU que eu tive por causa de porta fusível aqui também, né? Que eu mudei aqui, só que, meu, vou te falar, a minha estação aqui, ela tá mais separada do que tava aí há 2 anos atrás. Porque os rádios tava tudo um em cima do outro. Agora eles continuam, né? Mas tem uma distância aí, entendeu? Mas eu queria muito mudar aqui, cara. Muito. Olha lá, essa aqui, bicho, o pessoal vai dar risada, hein? Depois eu te mando a foto, você põe, você mostra na câmera. Em cima eu tenho aqui o Alico IC7000, uma linear, eu tenho 2 ventoinhas dessa por IC7000, porque, cara, tirando o 2980, o Aico IC7000, procura ele aí no YouTube, aí tem vídeo do Ivan arrumando os IC7000. É um rádio que ele esquenta muito. Esquenta muito, 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 cara. Eu tenho 2 ventoinhas, igual eu tenho e você tem aí, pro 2980. Você já viu aqui como é que é montado, né? A gambiarra que eu fiz aqui, porque eu tenho 2980 embaixo e um notebook ligado com 2 monitores em cima. Então você imagina como ferve, né? Mas como eu tô sempre usando o Alico só mais para escuta, né? Eu deixo ele dando loop, procurando frequência aí à noite. Então, mas cara, é complicado. Tem que ficar esperto, porque para pifar o equipamento desse aqui, se você tiver dúvida, né? Aqui, ó. Estou com 35 watts aproximadamente. Beleza, Paulo? É isso aí, deixa contigo. E, meu, você vê o IC7000 operando, eu vou te falar, viu, cara? O negócio não é brincadeira, não. Ferve e ferve, viu? E ele esquenta bem, ele só de estar ligado, ele esquenta, ele chega numa temperatura, agora, principalmente externa, ajuda também, óbvio, né? Mas se tiver muito quente, cara, ele sozinho, só de estar escutando, ele já ferve. E esse rádio ele tá ligado naquela IAESO, a Serra Papa 901, né? Que eu reformei ela todinha, Paulo. Brinquedo skate também. P2 Tango Mike Oscar, papel aqui 2 Eco X Uniforme.
P2 Tango Mike Oscar, Fernando. Quanto a rádio esquentar, eu sempre falo o seguinte, é que nem motor de carro, né? Com as devidas proporções e diferenças, né? Então, a mesma coisa que quando o motor do carro esquenta, você para no acostamento, né? Ninguém para no acostamento, ok? Você segue viagem, né? O motor vai refrigerando com ar, ou o cooler, né? O radiador lá na frente tem essa função, né? Tem a água, tem no radiador aquela ventoinha, né? Grande, um baita ventiladorzão lá que refresca, ajuda, né? Mas você não para o carro está lá numa temperatura bem quente, ok? Rádio também, né? O transistor, o módulo, uma válvula, eles trabalham em temperaturas bem altas. Então, é normal, né? Você tem um rádio ali indicando uma temperatura de 75, 80 graus, né? O módulo está ali na dele, né? O transistor é uma válvula, né? Que fica realmente muito quente. Tá? Agora, o problema não é o aquecimento, o problema é você põe em risco o rádio quando a estacionária está alta, é perigoso. Né? Se você está com uma estacionária boa, né, Fernando? Tudo redondinho, né? E para ter uma estacionária boa, um bom cabo coaxial, né, tem que ter os 50 ohms, ok? Ou você trabalha com impedância diferente, um outro projeto, tranquilo. Mas será um bom cabo coaxial, né? Essencial, você não consegue estacionária se não tiver um cabo bom. Então, primeiro, né, um bom cabo de 50 ohms, os conectores muito bons, né, de preferência de um fenol, e depois o ajuste da antena, né? Sempre eu falo, o ajuste da antena é essencial. Então, se tiver todo o sistema, né, antena, cabo, conectores, tudo bem ajustado, né, Fernando? Acabou, né? Você vai estar no meio da faixa com 1 por 1, né? Aí tudo bem, se as extremidades tiver um pouquinho de estacionária, né, 1,5, 1,8, tranquilo, né? Porque você está nas extremidades da antena, ok? E a antena vai estar ajustadinha no meio da faixa, ou né? Se ajusta a antena no começo da faixa, enfim, né? Mas digamos que esteja ajustada no meio da faixa, né, Fernando? Tá tudo redondinho, maravilha, né? Você pode operar com rádio aí tranquilo, né? Como eu dou câmbios aí de 10, 15 minutos, tá? Já cheguei a deixar o rádio ligado 20 minutos, portadora direto, ok? Fica pegando fogo, mas o módulo, o transistor aguenta, né? Por quê, né? Não tanto, né? Eu exagero às vezes, né? Eu sei que eu exagero no time da portadora, mas tá, você não põe em risco o módulo pelo seguinte, né? O mais perigoso para ele é a estacionária muito alta, né? O retorno, né? O retorno de radiofrequência é mais prejudicial do que o aquecimento, ok? Então, você pegar no manual do teu equipamento, né, você vai ver que a temperatura de trabalho dele é bem, bem alta, ok? Não significa que queima o rádio, né? Então, o que queima rádio é estacionária alta, aí sim, né? Ter lá um mau contato no porta-fusível, ter mau contato ali na solda do conector, né? A fiação ali que liga na fonte, com mau contato, tudo isso é prejudicial para o rádio. Mas é tudo certinho, manda bala, né? O rádio não queima, ok? Pode fazer um conteste o dia inteiro, trabalhando no limite que o rádio segura a onda. Tá bom, Fernando. Bom, mais alguém na frequência? PY2 Tango Mike Oscar, adiante.
Ok, positivo, Paulo. Ô Paulo, eu vou precisar descer, estão me chamando. Vou ter que fazer não sei o que lá embaixo. E logo mais eu já volto aí, tá bom? PY2 Tango Mike Oscar, PY2EXU X-Ray Uniforme.
Ok. Vai lá, Fernando, fica à vontade, hein? Mais alguém na frequência?
Built-in 4900 mAh rechargeable battery with 20 watts on HF and VHF and 10 watts on UHF. This radio is a smidge above a standard QRP radio. Now, being able to transmit between 160 meters right up to 70 centimeters in the handbands, the receive on the Q900 covers from 100 kilohertz all the way up to 2 gigahertz. And for those that are interested, yes, you can transmit and receive on the 11 meter, 27 megahertz band on all modes. The Q900 will arrive in a nice little protective carry case, along with everything you need to get on the bands, bar your antenna. The microphone is a speaker mic with a 4-connection 3.5mm plug and a headphone socket at the bottom. USB-C cable is also included, which can be used for connecting to your computer. We'll talk about compatible software later in the video, but this cable will also charge the internal battery. Short DC cable is provided, and if running at home, you can use this on your shack power supply. The Q900 that I received has the GPS module installed, but please note that the GPS antenna is not included in the kit. You will need to purchase this separately. Luckily, they're relatively cheap if you don't already own one, and can be sourced locally from Amazon or eBay. And the Q900 itself is solidly built with its full metal casing and brushed aluminium effect front panel. The Q900 can be controlled via the front-facing push buttons or via Bluetooth with a control app. The color screen shows a live waterfall and scope, so if you're using the front buttons for tuning, it's easy to move to an active frequency. This alleviates the common concern of not having an inbuilt rotatable VFO. In practice, it's extremely easy to use the buttons to change frequency, especially as the waterfall's 48 kHz bandwidth will provide the user information on local activity. On either side of the Q900, you'll also notice cooling fans. Now, these automatically turn on and off when a set temperature has been reached, helping to keep cool the internals of the radio. The rear panels host the main antenna connection, which is an SO239, along with a DC input, 2 USB sockets, audio out, an accessory port with a Morse key connection by its side. The LAN connection at this point in time is not currently used, but the 2 SMA connections are Antenna 2 and GPS. These SMA connections will only be available if you have the corresponding modules installed. The standard USB connection can be used for connecting items such as keyboards or inserting a memory stick for updating firmware. USB-C connection is used to connect to your computer for cat control and audio. Once plugged into your computer, a virtual serial port will appear alongside a sound card input and output for the Q900. This makes using digital modes extremely easy and with just one cable. The audio out from the USB sound card can be configured to either demodulated audio output or IQ. When using an IQ output, an SDR application can be used to show the waterfall on a computer running the supplied software. I'll also show you that later. Antenna 2 is used for when you have the optional DMR module installed. In this configuration, VHF and UHF comms share the main antenna connection for receive and antenna 2 for transmit. Now, this is extremely useful for when working in split mode, as you'll be able to work multiple band satellites with just one radio operating on 2 different bands. Now, the GPS SMA connection is where the GPS antenna is connected. Remember, this is only provided if you have the GPS option installed.
Mexico 0, Delta, Quebec Whiskey.
Again, your call?
Yeah, Mexico 0, Delta, Quebec Whiskey.
Mexico 0, Delta, Quebec Whiskey. Good afternoon, 5-7, over.
Yeah, you're 5-7 also, 5-7, 5 and 8. Very good afternoon. The name here is Matt, Mike Alpha Tango, QSL.
Thank you very much for the nice contact. 73, have a nice afternoon, bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
CQ7.
The audio output from the Q900 is nice and clear, with options to use external speakers either from the rear AFO socket, the headphone socket on the front panel, or via the speaker mic connection. Now, as mentioned earlier, the Q900 supports Bluetooth, not only for cat control but also two-way audio. The Q-Radio BLE application for Android is a free download and can be used to control the Q900 fully from the application. The app uses BLE, so no messing around having to pair each device, but you still have to select it within the software by holding down the BLE button and then releasing. Now, this app features a VFO control, or at least an image of a VFO, that when turned either way, it will act like a VFO and change the radio's frequency. Other radio settings, such as modulation type, audio output, RF-RX and TX settings, along with noise reduction controls, are easily accessible from the main page of the app. Well, some of the functions require just a simple tap, while others just require a long press to activate, just like on the radio. The Android screen shown here on the right is just a screen recording made on my 7-inch Lenovo tablet, which runs Android version 9. Now, this tablet is a couple of years old, and it was able to run the software with no issues. Just to point out, there are no Bluetooth settings needed on the radio itself. Bluetooth is always enabled, allowing you to connect freely to the radio when needed.
Okay, yeah, well, you're coming through, it's a bit of a noisy band at the moment, I think. So, yeah, we are struggling a little bit here, but I thought I'd just come on the band and just see if I can pick a few people up there and just make sure that all the systems are working as they should. So, I'm not quite sure they are yet, but obviously I'm getting out anyway, which is always a good sign. So, but thanks for calling back. Really appreciate it, Brian. And you have a good day over there. And we'll just work a couple more, and then we'll close the radio down and go and read the manual again. Hi.
Mike 0 Delta Quebec Whiskey.
Standing whiskey.
Yeah, Mike 0 Delta Quebec Whiskey.
Delta Quebec Whiskey, please, the politics again.
Yes, it's Mike 0 Delta Quebec Whiskey. QSL.
QSL Mike 0 Delta Quebec Whiskey, 5 and 8.
Yes, you're 5 and 8, 5 and 8, 73.
73 after Quebec 100, Mike Bravo Sierra, QSL.
As the Q900 also supports all mode on 2 meters, I decided to take a listen for some activity. Now, luck would be on my side as there was a 2 meter SSB contest on. So let's take a listen to a couple of QSOs.
So, mate, no problem. Thanks very much for the call. Wish you all the best. Seeking contest, Mike 0 November. Mike
November, Golf 3, Charlie November, Oscar.
Golf 3, Charlie November, Oscar. Thanks for the call. 5 and 8 with me at the moment. 045. 5 and 8, 45. Italy, Oscar. 91, Lima, Tango.
CQ contest. T3, Mexico, England, Holland. Golfer 3, Mike Echo Hotel. T3 MEH, CQ contest, over. Yeah, Golf 4, Delta, Bravo, Lima, portable. Negative, Delta, Bravo, Lima, portable. Delta, Bordeaux, Lima, portable. IQSL, thank you. You are 59004, number 4 in Italy, Oscar 91 November Papa. 91 November Papa, over.
As mentioned earlier, the model of Q900 that I received contains the optional DMR module. This allows the user to receive and transmit using DMR. It is Moto Turbo compatible and can be used with hotspots or DMR repeaters. So here's what DMR sounds like when it's configured.
Kelnet, this is KR0LEX in Wichita, Kansas. Good morning, Wichita, Kansas. KD0 USA, Palm Beach County, Florida. Actually, I was looking for Kelnet in Trinidad and Tobago. Just for a quick QSO, and then I'll get back to you. Enjoy. Today at KD0 USA, 9 Yankee 4 Charlie Alpha Juliet. Go ahead. I believe Kansas is trying to get over you. I'll stand by.
Using DMR is just as simple as selecting DMR from the mode selection and then heading into the menu and selecting DMR. Now within the DMR configuration page, you can change the call type between private or group, the slot number, the TX and RX color code, the call ID, which is the talk group in which you want to talk through, and then your own ID, which is your personal DMR ID that you normally use on your DMR radios to identify yourself. Other options in the menu are a call, which allows the user to set up 4 auto calls. Now this would be in CW. To enter text into the text box, you can either use the numeric keypad to the left or plug in a USB keyboard into the rear of the radio. Another option is DIR, which is used to show the information from the GPS and compass module. Now this information would only be available if you have the GPS and compass modules installed. You will also notice a heading dial which changes as you're moving. Another menu option is called QChat, which allows the user to type text messages and send them to other Q900 users. However, this requires the LoRa board to be fitted, and that's something that I did not have in this particular model. The music option lets you connect your mobile phone to the Q900 via Bluetooth, allowing your music library to be played through the Q900. Next is the VSWR menu item, and this is really useful. At a click of a button, you can scan the band and it will show you an accurate SWR plot. The Q900 does have an inbuilt tuner, so if the SWR is not as low as you would like, you can activate the internal ATU. Moving the marker across the band allows the user to find the lowest SWR on the current scan. The APRS option looks interesting, but I've been told by the supplier that this feature is only supported in China. Hopefully this will be opened up for use in other parts of the world soon via a firmware update. The Q900 also features a fully working FM broadcast receiver and is accessible via the radio button within the menu. The set option allows the user to tailor the Q900 how they want it to work. Adjusting screen backlights and key volumes is extremely easy, along with setting a maximum VSWR setting before the warning is issued. Configuring the Q900 to work through an FM repeater is quite easy, even through the front panel. Now, this feature would use the split function to display the received and transmitted frequency, using the VFO AB button to switch between the two for initial settings. Now, if you hold down the split button, you're presented with a small overlay, which you can then set the CTCSS tone for RX and TX if the repeater requires it.
Excuse me, my English is not correct. Is for possible spotting me in this frequency, IW0HOQ is in this frequency.
The Q900 has a NB and NR feature. The clip played there was with the noise reduction turned on. Now this is fully configurable through the menu, which allows the user to adjust the amount of noise reduction which is applied. In my opinion, it works quite well. One of the last things I'd like to show you is a free Android app called FT8CN. Now this app uses Bluetooth BLE between the radio and an Android device, supporting two-way audio and cat control. FT8CN is an FT8 application that lets you use the FT8 protocol from literally anywhere, as long as obviously you're in range of the radio. Perfect for use at home or if you're out portable, so no need to carry large laptops around. And one of the things I like about the software is that the waterfall also shows the decoded message, so at a glance you can read all of the FT8 activity on that band. With the Q900 hooked up to your computer via the USB cable, you can use digital applications like WSJTX. Such applications are fully supported. With the inbuilt Q900 turned on and plugged into the computer, you can find the Q900 virtual COM port by checking device configuration. Within WSJTX settings, set the radio type to the Yaesu FT817. Then set the COM port and then change the PTT to CAP. On the audio tab, select the Q900 for input and output audio source. You should now be able to use all of your favorite digital modes using WSJTX and the Q900. Another free application specifically designed for the Q900 is CNSDR. This application runs on Windows and allows you to fully control the radio. What is also nice is a large spectrum scope with waterfall. You can completely control the radio from this application and listen via your computer speakers.
Yeah, you've just gone into the new square. That's fine. November Yankee 9-7. November Yankee 9-7. You're 5 and 9:59, okay? And they were all fighting one another, like gang fights. And it happened in two places, apparently. One was up in Islington, and the other one was somewhere in East London.
In 2016 was a farm area. So I had a lot of agriculture ground around my house, and no problem to install any kind of antenna. I would have liked to place and install, Chris. Back to you, Mike 0 Kilo India Bravo, India Kilo 4 Bravo Papa Victor.
Another Android application called Star Tracker is also freely available. This application will automatically adjust radio frequency for Doppler effect when using satellites. Now, I'll make another video specifically for all the software packages at a later time, as this is quite in depth. Well, there we go, guys. That's an overview of the Q900 all-mode, all-band radio. I must say that I've been working closely with the supplier and the manufacturer of the Q900, and their support has been second to none. Any questions I've had while learning how to use this radio have been answered very quickly and very professionally. If you're interested in this particular radio, then I'll leave a link to it in the description below. As I said, their support has been second to none, so if you do want one of these radios, I'd recommend purchasing it from the link below. I'll also leave a link to the manufacturer's website so you can go and take a look at the well-written manual and watch out for further firmware updates. The project is very active and they're open to suggestions and feedback, so don't feel afraid to drop them a message with any questions or feature ideas. Until the next video, take care, stay safe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
today's video, we're going to take a look at this new Pentec TR45 Lite, a little 5-band CW transceiver from WA3 RNC. Now, this is from the same gentleman that brought you the 2-band TR25 CW transceiver and the TR35 4-band 5-watt CW transceivers that are very popular amongst folks that do PODA and SODA and other portable operating. This is the 5-band 5-watt TR45 Lite that is just starting to hit production now. At the time of producing this video, about the second week of December or so, the pilot run for these is just about finishing up, and he's planning on entering in production the beginning of 2023. The plan is to offer both factory wired and aligned units as well as kits in the future. So let's take a closer look at the TR45 Lite. Now, even though this TR45 is considerably larger than the TR25 and 35 kits, maybe not as backpack friendly, I just love the look of this thing. From the vintage panel meter to the well laid out controls, the physical form factor, built-in speaker, and carry handle, I think it's just an awesome looking little radio. The 5 bands covered by this rig are the 80, 75 meter band, the 40, 30, 20, and 17 meter bands. While full band coverage is provided in the radio, the transmitter is optimized just for the CW portions of the bands. The unit I have here has 2 options. One is a built-in 5200 milliamp hour battery, which lasts quite a long time. And the other is a built-in Z-Match tuner right on the back of the rig that features both coaxial and banana jack connections. So you can switch between your balanced line and your coax and using the tuner in line or not. The design is a single conversion analog transceiver with a 4.9 megahertz IF. It has a really nice sound with the built-in speaker. Some of the new SDR radios and things like that just sound to me very mechanical. This has a very nice warm sound. And we'll go play with it and take a look at some of the controls. Now, other than the aesthetics of this radio, one of the other things I really like about it is that there's absolutely no menus whatsoever. Everything is controlled by knobs and switches. So let's walk through the various controls. Of course, there's a dial illuminator that can be very bright, which kind of washes out on the video. So we'll go to the dim setting here for the video. The phones jack allows you to plug in headphones, and the speaker is actually still active when you plug the headphone in. There's actually a separate switch here to turn the external speaker, or the internal speaker, on or off. The volume control, obviously right here. There's a variable notch control that when you turn it all the way fully clockwise, essentially moves the notch out of the passband so it's not there. And to simply use the notch, just rotate it down to eliminate that interfering tone that you want. When you don't want to use it, just turn it fully clockwise again. There's continuously variable RF gain. The automatic built-in key or speed is right on the front panel. As you rotate it, you'll see on the display, you can actually change your key or speed. I typically run mine, about 14, 15 words a minute, maybe a little bit more. I'm not a speed demon. I start to struggle when I get above 20 words a minute. It's actually separate inputs for a set of paddles or a straight key. And this is really handy if you actually have both. You don't have to go into a menu to switch between the two. You simply can plug in what you want. You can actually plug in both at the same time. It's also handy when we go to tune up the radio that if you like using paddles, you can actually move the paddles to the key jack and then hit one of the paddles to act like a single key to hold the unit and transmit while you are setting up the tuner. Very handy. The tuning encoder is right here. The default to tune is in the 10 hertz position. If you hit it once, it'll move to the 100 hertz position to tune. If you push and hold, it'll jump to the 1 kilohertz position to tune very quickly. Push and hold again, and it drops to the 1 hertz position if you actually want to do very, very fine tuning. Here's your continuously variable transmit power control. We'll typically use this if you want to operate lower than the 5-watt maximum, or if you want your tuning up, you'll tune up generally to lower power, then start increasing it as you get the tuner kind of lined in. We'll actually show you the tuning process here in a little bit. And of course, when transmitting, the S meter or the analog meter can show either forward power or reverse power. We'll typically leave it in reverse power when we're setting up the tuner. And I typically leave it there anyway, just to ensure that something doesn't happen to the antenna, I can actually see what's happening. And there's also a high SWR warning light. Once the reflected power gets too high, that will light up, give you an indication that you might have to either check your antenna or readjust the tuner. Now, a couple of the switches actually are a momentary push button one way or the other with a center off position. This one here will activate a dial lock when you toggle it up so that you won't accidentally change frequencies. Hit it again and turns that dial lock off. Pushing that same button down will go to a battery check, so you can actually check the health of the battery on the meter. And there's also a spot, so you can actually hear your side tone so that you can kind of compare that to what you're listening to see if you're tuned to the station properly, if you've got them zero beated. This switch up here, when you push it up, is a receive incremental tuning that allows you to adjust your receive frequency without changing your transmit frequency. So if someone is drifting off, or if you've got a tone you like to listen to that's different than the side tone that's built into the radio, you can actually adjust that here. The RIT light lights up when the RIT is active. Push it up again, deactivates the RIT. The display obviously shows you the frequency you're operating on, shows you the band you're operating on, shows you the receive mode. There's actually 3 receive modes. There's CW narrow, which is what we're listening to now. CW wide is a wider filter position. And if you push and hold the RX mode switch down, it switches to SSB. It's still the same width, but it changes the essentially the zero beat frequency, if you will, adjust the internal LOs so that the dial frequency matches what you have on a normal ordinary transceiver to listen to a single sideband signal. When you're in CW mode, there's a zero beat offset so that you can actually hear the side tone. The USB display here just tells you that the CW mode is using the upper sideband. And by convention, for 20 meters on up, the upper sideband is used for receive, and then for the lower bands, the lower sideband is used. There are 2 VFOs. You can see the display showing VFO A. This switch here, when you push it down, will switch between VFO A, which I've got set to CW here on 20 meters, and VFO B, which I've got in the single sideband phone portion of the band. Hitting it again brings you back to VFO A. Band selection is done with this switch as well, just by toggling the switch up. We can switch between and now the 20 meter band, the 17 meter band, the 80 meter band, 40 meters, 30 meters, and back to 20. So you simply cycle through all 5 with up pushes on this switch. Now let's listen to a couple of the receive modes here. So here's the CW wide. We can hear a couple of different stations. We switch to CW narrow. Now I really just hear that one station. And there's also a narrow audio filter that you can apply after the IF, which actually makes it even quieter still. It makes it almost sound like a code practice oscillator. I was curious about how wide those filters are, so I took the time to go take a look at them on my scope. So this is a plot of the CW wide and single sideband filter characteristic. Certainly not hi-fi quality, but very, very good for single sideband or listening wide for CW. Probably 500 or 600 hertz to 2300 hertz or so in terms of receive bandwidth in the wide mode. In the CW narrow mode, we're down to probably just about 400 hertz of bandwidth centered on about 700 hertz where the side tone is. You can ignore these little spikes. These were noise spikes being picked up by poor grounding of the probe I was using to actually go take a look at it. When you're in the CW narrow mode, you can engage the low pass or the band pass audio filter, which sharpens up that filter even more right on the side tone frequency. And again, if you're properly zero beated, it almost makes it sound like a code practice oscillator. So in addition to the long press on the receive mode to switch between CW and single sideband for the local oscillator offsets, there's also a function in the VFO A and B when you long press that. When you long press that, what it will do is take the mode and frequency and all that you've got set up for that particular band and store that in non-volatile memory so that next time you power on the rig, and you switch to that band, that's the band and mode that it will go to. So for example, if I wanted to always be at 14.059 when I come to 20 meters, I would push and hold this down, and then the backlight goes out on the display. That tells you that you've now written that into the non-volatile memory. So if I turn the rig off and then turn it back on again, when I return back to the 20-meter band, or in this case, it'll be in the 20-meter band, it comes back to that particular setting. So if I tune off frequency, turn it off, then come back on again, we'll see that I'll return back to that 14.059 that I wrote into the memory. Now the back panel is quite simple. Again, I've got the optional Z-Match tuner. This would not be there if you don't get that option. With that tuner in place, you can actually bypass it to go directly out to the antenna connections, or in will allow you to use the tuner in line. And then the RF signal can be routed to the coaxial connector or the balanced line connectors. So in addition to the phone's jack on the front panel, this jack here is for an external speaker. If the nice internal speaker is not what you want, you can plug in your external speaker here. Plugging that in will cut off the internal speaker. There are two DC inputs. Now, pardon these amateur labels here. I put these on. These did not come on the radio itself. The red one is for the charger only, to charge the internal battery. So if you don't have the internal battery, that really wouldn't even be there, I don't think. I'm not sure if it gets populated or not if you don't get that option. And if you want to use an external battery, even if you've got the optional one inside, you can bring an external 12 volts into this coaxial jack here and run on an external 12 volt source. Let's take a look at how to use the optional built-in tuner. Z-Match tuner is very nice because it's just two controls, and there's one combination that gives you the lowest possible reflected power. So you start off by plugging your key or your paddles into the key jack so that you can key down continuously. Reduce the transmit power to some low level to start off with here. Turn the volume up a little bit and switch. I usually like to start off by switching to the wide mode so I can listen to the noise floor. And what you want to do is adjust the two knobs in the back. You can reach over the top and adjust for the maximum noise level or the maximum received level. So I'm going to bring the RF gain all the way up and just adjust these back and forth for the maximum noise. Feels like it's right about there. Now it sounds like I'm in a quiet portion of the band, so we'll just listen a little bit to be sure I'm not going to interfere with anybody before I start keying up to test the transmitter. Okay, so satisfied that the band I'm not going to interfere with somebody, we'll start off by just turn the volume down here on the receiver just a little bit. Leave the RF power switch in the reverse position and key up the rig and turn up the power. I can see I'm getting some deflection, some reflected power. So once I start to get some reflected power, then I can key down and start adjusting the knobs to minimize that. All right, so looks like I hit a nice minimum spot there. Once I do that, I can then turn the power up some more. I'm getting more reflected power. Let's see if we can minimize that again. Went the wrong way. There we go. There, we dropped it right down to 0. And then we can turn the power up some more. Now with the power all the way up, I'm not getting that much reflected power, so I'm just about there. And there, boom. Now I've got this thing dialed in, so I've got no reflected power. I'm properly tuned up, ready to roll at full power. The only control we didn't talk about is this guy right here. These are the controls for the CW message memory. There are two message memories to store an outgoing message, like a CQ call, for example. And you can choose which one you want to play by either hitting the DIT or the DA key. If I switch this over to play, we can see hitting the DIT will play back message 1, the DA will play back message 2. If we hit the DIT, you'll hear my CW PODA call that I've got stored. Similarly, if I want to record message 1 or 2, I flip over to record. And what I would do is hit the DIT to record into message 1, hit the DA to record in message 2. The radio will repeat 1 or 2 in Morse code. Once it finishes sending that, then you send your message. And then once you pause for a few seconds, that will get stored and your memory is there. Well, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this review of this Pentec TR45 Lite. Just a really great transceiver to operate. Such a great sound in it. Even with the really narrow filter, the receiver almost sounds like a code practice oscillator. No ringing like you have with some of the DSP filters and some of the more modern kind of digital designs or SDR designs. So just a great transceiver. And just a reminder, at the time again, producing this video, the second week of December 2022, he's just finishing up the pilot production run of these units. I pre-ordered this in September and just got it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So you may have to be patient if you want one of these. He expects to be in production in early 2023, and then to provide kits for them as well after that. I can tell you that once I got this unit here, I haven't turned on any of my my main rigs here in the shack. I've been making all my contacts on 5 watts with this TR45 Lite. It's just such a fun radio to operate, very easy with all the manual controls, such a great sound to it. So again, I hope you enjoyed this review of the Pentec TR45 Lite 5-band 5-watt CW only transceiver. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. And thanks again, as always, for watching. We'll see you next time.
Canal